Good evening, folks. Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Happy Friday. Tonight, Anthony DiMaggio is joining me. Let's clear up some things from last week. Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, Anthony DiMaggio joins me once again. Happy Friday. Let's clear up some things from last week's podcast where PBA President Keith Olson joined us. He made some comments that were contradicting those made by Anthony DiMaggio. So who was right? Let's find out. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. I got Anthony DiMaggio joining me. Good evening. I don't know what happened there. I think I hit live and didn't realize it, and I was testing out my sound bites.
That's what happened.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
Oh, excuse me. My sound bites. You've been asking it for a while, so I finally got them on there. How's it going? How you been, Anthony? How's everything?
Good.
So last week, I'm sorry.
Yeah, good.
Last week we were discussing the Ray Montero lawsuit, and then we had the PBA president Keith Olson start to make some comments, and he was basically contradicting what you were saying there. And I guess basically what he said was that the lawsuit that Montero filed against the PBA, the police department, I guess, in the city was actually dismissed. It went nowhere. And so that's not true, right? That's what you're saying. That's what you were saying before. Now you have some documents to be more clear, right? Kind of go through what actually the case was about, what actually ended up happening, and kind of dissecting some of what Keith Olson was saying, you know, to show where his mistakes were, I guess, let's say, right? So his misunderstandings.
Well, his wordplay, he was very crafty. Actually, I don't really even care to dispute most of what he said, because as I was rewatching the podcast, I realized that most of what he was talking about was completely irrelevant to me. And I felt like kind of an idiot for just letting him hijack the podcast in the way that he did, and taking it off in a direction that just completely irrelevant to me. And let me explain what I mean by that, because I said this at one point in the last podcast. I said it doesn't matter. And I caught a ton of shit for saying that. But having rewatched it, 90% of what he said, it doesn't matter. Because when I thought it was a good idea to go through some of this stuff in the Montero lawsuit, I only intended to go through it insofar as it shows John Mueller's track history. What happened with Brian Moran and Keith Olson, I couldn't care less about, because they're not going to be involved when I go to court.
Right.
Does that make sense? I mean,
oh yeah, it definitely makes sense
right.
In terms of, you know, your specific case and what happened to you and your incident. But I think that it is relevant, you know, to the people of the city of Yonkers, right? I think that, sure. These are the kind of things that we see, right? 20 years later, 30 years later, when they're like they're talking about what happened, and now we know, who actually did it, right? Or who actually was involved, right? But we're kind of doing it almost in real time. You know, some of it has passed already, but some individuals like Keith Olson, still an active police officer, president of the PBA. And I think for new police officers coming in, even though some of them are, friends and family people that, but I think it's important for them to know this, what's happened here, and even the residents, right? And so I think you coming on here, and although it may not be directly related to your story, being able to speak on it because of your experience, your firsthand knowledge of being a lieutenant, it's to me is valuable information. So
and we can speak about it now, because now he forced my hand to go do all that rest of the research that I really wasn't interested in before. You don't want to, right, because you don't want to be discredited, right? And then people, right. So in prepping for last week's podcast, I had spoken to Ray a lot about what went on with this lawsuit. The only part I bothered to confirm was the part with John Mueller. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have anticipated Keith hopping in and trying to make me look like an idiot, but I didn't. But obviously now, since he forced my hand, I did. So we'll go through some of that stuff tonight. I sent you some emails.
Yeah.
Right. Now the one on top is just a link back to the page that we were looking at last week when Keith started hopping in with his little one-liners.
And so, how was your? Have you ever had a real relationship with Keith, or any kind of relationship, say, with Keith? Any friendship, or just
I never had a
cordial to
personal
each?
problem with
I mean,
Keith.
I
I
know
never had it.
you were a
Right,
lieutenant.
right. Yeah, I never had a personal problem with Keith. You know, he and I never, coordinated to go out hanging out together, but there were plenty of times, certainly, we were both out in the same place and getting along and throwing back beers together and whatnot and breaking chops and things like that. So,
So you were
he was
cordial to
never,
each other. You got
yeah,
it
he was never a nemesis of mine personally. You know what I mean?
right.
Still not.
And you've never made him a point, or a specific target of what you've been saying, and someone that's been directly involved in your incident and what happened to you. You've said that, I don't think Keith had anything to do with it. So I just want to put that out there.
Right.
What email did you want to look first? Give me the name. Do you want to bring
Oh,
it
it
first?
should say it should say in the subject line that it's a link to the
Oh,
case.
okay.
So
Oh,
what we're
right.
gonna do is we're
Yeah,
gonna go
yeah.
right back to where
The
we got
link, I got
interrupted
you.
last week. Right. And we're gonna cut through the middle section of that's an official court document, by the way. Because I went up to the federal courthouse in White Plains 2 days ago and I pulled the documents necessary to talk about all the other stuff that Keith was yammering on about last week. And while I was there, I looked at all the rest of the documents, and that document on the Justia webpage, this one was one of the documents that I pulled up on the computer up on Corapi Street in White Plains. Now, the first 9 or 10 pages give an introduction of the case. The
And you made some
accusations.
notes, so right, you got some
Right.
notes there.
Oh yeah, sure, just a few. We went through all this, the first 9 or so 10 pages last week, right? And then I'd say in the 28 to 30 pages that follow, the judges give their opinion and they back it up with citations to other cases, case law, things that had been decided in the past. And what they ultimately arrive at is that the requirements had been met for them to rule that the action of these 3 Olsonettes, Keith Olson, Brian Moran, and John Mueller, were a violation of Ray Montero's First Amendment right to free speech. The reasons why, we can touch on them a little bit. People can definitely go to this website and read it for themselves. Okay. Now, when this lawsuit was first filed, I think in 2015 is what I read. The district court, okay, it's a federal court because it's a First Amendment case. And by the way, that's important to talk about too, that the examination of the facts of this case was very limited in scope. It wasn't, is this workplace retaliation? It wasn't, is this harassment? It wasn't, is this illicit targeting? None of that stuff that you would have to go and file a lawsuit at the state level to have examined. This was very, very limited in scope. Was this behavior a violation of Ray Montero's First Amendment rights? That's it. The judges didn't care about anything else. So when Ray filed, the initial ruling of the district court, a judge named Karras, was that it was not a First Amendment violation because Ray Montero was not speaking in his capacity as a private citizen.
Right.
He was speaking,
As a member
during the
of the
course of
department.
his duties, right?
Right.
So they never got to the second thing that they would have had to examine afterward, which was, were the things that he was talking about a matter of public concern? Okay. They also never got to the third thing that they would have had to examine was, were these 3 guys, Mueller, Moran, and Olson, acting as state actors under the color of law? In other words, in their official capacities, right? So being that they ruled against Ray on the first thing, which was he speaking as a private citizen or not? They considered that to be what the lawyers call dispositive, meaning forget about the rest of it. This is over with. He was not speaking as a private citizen. Therefore,
Right.
the First Amendment doesn't apply. Okay.
Right. He doesn't have that right.
Right. They dismissed it with prejudice. Ray appealed. It went to the Second Circuit. In the Second Circuit, a panel of 5 federal judges overruled that decision.
Right.
They said that, and you can read it there, he was essentially speaking as a private citizen because when he was wearing his union hat, volunteering to be a part of union business, to be a union official, is not part and parcel of your duties as a police officer. It's above and
Right.
beyond. So
That's
it's more of
outside,
a
right?
it's more of a private democratic type of a thing.
Right.
Okay. So they ruled that he was speaking as a private citizen. Then they went on to the next thing that the district court never even got to. Were the things that he was speaking about a matter of public concern? And what they ultimately ruled were that yes, at least some of them were. The closure of the burglary unit, the closure of the
Right.
domestic violence unit, whether or not a complete screwball like Nuck Smith should be the police commissioner.
Yeah.
These
And
are
that
things
put
that
the
right.
and that I'm sorry, and that put the community at risk, right? With these closures, like with people complaining about the firehouse, the lack of a firehouse at Ridge Hill, right? That puts the
Right.
people in danger. And so there
Right.
were true concerns. I just want to read this real quick here. This is from another website that I have access to. Because it says here, because plaintiff's union remarks were not made pursuant to his official duties as a police officer, he
Right.
spoke as a private citizen for the purpose of his First Amendment right to free speech. Taking the amended complaints allegations as true, plaintiff spoke in his role as a union officer, and his union speech was not composed of statements made as a means to fulfill or undertaken in the course of performing his responsibilities as a police officer. Because the specific question of whether the plaintiff's alleged union remarks were protected by the First Amendment was not beyond debate at this time of two individual defendants' alleged retaliation against plaintiffs. Under the claims as pled by plaintiff, those defendants were protected from liability by qualified immunity. Plaintiff had not alleged a plausible claim for municipal liabilities against defendant city.
Right. Okay.
So
So let me explain a
basically,
little bit.
go ahead. No, go
Let
ahead.
me explain a little bit what that means. That's in the appellate court now. Okay. And after they got past the first two requirements, basically that Ray had to be speaking as a private citizen and that the things he was speaking about had to be a matter of public concern. Once they affirmed those two things, then they moved on to the third thing, which was, were the three defendants acting as state actors when they engaged in all of this behavior? The retaliatory fraudulent investigations, the transfer out of the special investigations unit. Okay.
And I'm sorry, when you say state actor, right? Just for people maybe you mean working for the police, the government? Is that what you mean by
working for the government? Right. Were they acting as state officials?
Right.
Okay, because they would have to be in order to be potentially held liable for violating Ray's First Amendment rights. Now, right then and there, by the way, whether or not they engaged in the behavior was never at issue. And that's very, very important to understand. They never even denied it. They just said, well, we're not liable for this by way of qualified immunity, which if you go back to the Justia page, right? If you scroll all the way down towards the end, the last few pages, it'll go right to the liability of the defendants. Yeah, it's in the last few pages. Yeah, all the way down.
Let's see, I didn't go there.
Yeah, there you are. So there you go. It was just there where you were.
Right here?
No, go up a couple of pages, a few more pages. Right there. Okay. Liability of defendants Moran and Mueller. So now that we, as the appellate division, have affirmed that your actions were a violation of Ray Montero's First Amendment rights, we have to get into the matter of your liability. Were you liable? And if so, what's your punishment going to be? So if you want to read, starting right there a little bit, where it says liability of defendants Moran and Mueller, we can read that, and then I'll explain a little bit about what it means as I understand it.
Sure. Defendant Moran and Mueller argued that even if Montero's speech was constitutionally protected and they took adverse employment actions against him for this speech, they are, even on the present state of the proceedings, entitled to qualified immunity. We agree. Qualified immunity and affirmative defense shields officials from personal liability for civil damages so long as their conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. And they refer to case law. Continue on there? Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but I think that about sums it up. So what it means is that the appellate division, after overturning the district court's decision and affirming that this behavior was fraudulent and retaliatory, and more importantly, a violation of race First Amendment rights, they said, well, because it had not been clearly established previously that this kind of behavior violated the rights of a guy speaking out with his union hat on, okay, you're going to get a pass. You're going to get this thing called qualified immunity,
Right.
because, as it says right there, their conduct, I guess, did not violate an already clearly established statutory or constitutional right. Okay, the next batch of idiots that does this to a guy like Ray, who's wearing his union hat, speaking out against these things, is going to be on the hook big time. Probably going to have to pay out of pocket. Who knows? Maybe the city will indemnify them, but the next guy is going to get paid. Okay, so
I'm sorry, just about qualified immunity. That's only given to law enforcement officers. Like I said, people who official capacity. Elected officials.
It's to government people. It's spoken about a lot in cases involving police officers, but it's not specifically for cops. But although it does pop up mostly, I think, from what I've read all over the place.
What is the goal of qualified immunity? Like, what's the purpose?
The way I read it is this: you three idiots knew what you were doing was wrong and morally abhorrent, and probably against all types of state laws and whatever. But at the time that you were doing it, you really had no reason to be aware that you were violating Ray Montero's First Amendment rights. You were violating them, but because there had been no clearly established precedent beforehand, this is the case that's establishing the precedent. We're not going to let you be held liable and be subject to punishment, punitive damages and things like that. Because Ray did sue for punitive damages. He didn't name an amount in the beginning. I guess it was just one of those things where they want to get through the culpability of the defendants first, and then decide what the damages are going to be after. But the judges in the appellate court overturned the district court's ruling, but then stopped it right there and said, yes, essentially you're guilty of this. They don't use guilty and not guilty in the civil court.
Right.
But it's akin to that. It's akin to saying you're guilty of this, but we're not going to punish you for it. People who do the same thing in the future will get punished. Okay. So that's qualified immunity. Now, if you go down to the liability of defendant Olson,
and really quick, just to remind people, what is it exactly that Montero was saying? I know he was speaking about some units that they were taking away, maybe some stations, I guess, or satellite stations they were closing down, that, and what else? What was he? What was it that they had an issue with? I don't know anything
about satellite stations. They have specialized investigatory units within the detective division dedicated to certain types of crimes, like the burglary unit. I remember the burglary unit. When I was a young cop, my first few years on the job, if we got called to a burglary that had happened, and burglaries aren't always dramatic scenes with guns like you see them in the movies and stuff like that. Or it's if someone picks the lock to your apartment door inside of a building and goes in and takes a few things or moves things around, or just burglary is you illegally entered or remained with the intention to commit a crime.
Right.
Actually, when you're studying for the tests, promotion tests, they teach you don't actually even have to commit a crime while you're inside. You just have to enter with the intent. So if you pick somebody's lock and you go in with the intent to steal something, you've committed a burglary.
Right.
And if there's evidence of a forced entry or something like that, you'll call the burglary unit instead of just calling the regular detectives. They had a unit specialized in those kinds of investigations.
So is that how they handle it now? I guess once they shut that down, they just have other detectives.
I don't know if that unit ever reopened, to be honest with you. I've been out 3 years.
But there's still burglaries going on. So
of course,
what do they do?
You'll just call a detective, and hopefully the detectives that show up are in the mood to do their job that day. And if they're not, then you're going to complain.
But if they
about
shut it down, they didn't fire those officers, right? Those detectives.
No,
they still have the manpower essentially to handle the calls, I guess.
Right, but what they were doing, they were saying, okay, we don't need that extra unit, so we'll take the cops out of it and put them in the count elsewhere. Kill overtime and patrol and things like that. The domestic violence unit was also closed. There was a unit that specialized in the investigation of domestic violence cases. They closed that. I don't know if that's open. I know there are probably some active cops watching. If someone wants to
Well, maybe they closed it because some of the people they kept having to investigate were people at the top. I don't want to say too much about a source, but just no, he's very reliable, and he's told me about a lot of instances where people got away with domestic violence stuff because of who they were.
Yeah, I'm sure it has happened.
Many times actually, and there were bad cases also. He said. Anyway,
so and also the third thing that people overlook was that Keith was using his negotiator hat, his platform, his audience with the mayor, which was a big audience as the union president, to push John Mueller for becoming the police commissioner. And Ray, working for the guy, knowing him, knowing that he's one flew over the cuckoo's nest, said, "Wait a minute, that's like a really, really bad idea."
Right.
And so, in his capacity as union VP, was speaking out against it. That's why last week Keith said, "Well, hey, when you're going around bad mouthing your boss, you're eventually going to get transferred, right?" Yeah, but he was doing it with his union hat on. He wasn't just walking around saying, "This guy's a piece of stuff."
Right.
I hate this guy, and making up rumors about him and spreading nasty rumors about him. He was trying to speak out against a plan that the union president had.
Right.
Concerning John Mueller.
And I mean, how else are you gonna, campaign?
And whether John Mueller likes it or not, he can't transfer him for that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so exactly what it is that was said up in this lawsuit about Mueller that shows, because then you one of the words that sticks with me is you call them what do you say
a sadist.
A sadist. Yeah, that's what it was. I don't know why I thought that was the wrong word.
The judges are not going to call him a sadist in
No, I know, but what is it in here that kind of would make you infer or kind of draw that conclusion that's what they're saying basically, that's who he is.
Sadist means you don't just do these things, you enjoy it. Okay,
right.
Now the judges don't know the guy from a hole in the wall, so they're not going to be able to opine on something like that.
I thought you had said that we could, within the lawsuit that there were going to be some description about who Mueller was, and that would show kind of the evil guy that he was. That's all I'm saying.
The only thing of use to me in my case, in this Montero case, is that the notion that John Mueller launches, quarterbacks, and sees through these completely fraudulent, retaliatory investigations against people within the department who have pissed off one of his buddies, one of the guys in those pictures, and for no other reason, is not just a rumor, it's not just an idea. It's a matter of record in the federal court system in this country. Right. It's a matter of record that he did this. Okay.
And so that's what you mean by, Mayor Spano should have known who John Mueller was before appointing him commissioner, because of what he was doing, what he had done that was right here in this lawsuit showing.
Right. The fact that he was shielded from punishment for it on a legal technicality means nothing in the court of public opinion, and it means nothing in politics. The fact that a federal court acknowledged that this guy did all of this should have taken him out of contention for higher managerial positions within the police department immediately. You can't launch fraudulent investigations against people and move up the ranks in a police department. Doesn't matter if they're subordinates or John Q. citizen out in the street. Doesn't matter. You're launching fake investigations. And the courts acknowledged it, that he did it.
But who's going to stop him? I mean, even if the court's kind of acknowledging him right here in the lawsuit, I mean, who do you expect to stop him?
Well, it's supposed to be the city council, but they didn't do their job.
Right. Right. And that's what I mean. I mean, when you have an administration and elected officials who themselves, essentially launch fraudulent investigations, right? They lie about people and try to create false perceptions of individuals, for their own political gain. So they basically do the same thing that John Mueller does, right? So I mean, who's going to stop him? He could have three of these lawsuits. He still would have been appointed,
So right. So I get what you're saying. You're saying that to Mike Spano, this is just a daily thing. He does this to people every day. So why would he hold it against John Mueller?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, even if he knew about it or not, right? And when he found out about it, okay, well, I've done the same shit before to my political opponents, right? Or anyone that's spoken out against the administration, So, I mean, I've experienced that. I'm not saying Mike Spano directly, but so, that's what I'm saying. And that's what I want, a lot of people to understand also, right? This is why we need change because of this fact. I mean, we have an administration, elected officials that are not doing their job, and, they're allowing individuals like this to be at the top position, especially of the Yonkers Police Department, which I would, and you would agree, right? Are the greatest police department in the world, right?
Right. So when they launched an investigation, an unauthorized investigation into his use of sick leave, right? Remember we spoke about that last week?
Yeah.
And, he, coming up to the elections, the union elections, he had called out of work with strep throat. Now, he wanted a campaign because everybody was supposed to be meeting down at Hyde Park, which, by the way, I've had 4 or 5 people call me during the week and say that did happen. Ray was there.
Right.
And the ESU bosses had to go in and break it all up because it was starting to get rowdy. But Keith denied that Ray was there, saying something like, he would never even show up knowing that I was there.
Just to let you know that Keith Olson has commented, and he is.
I'm sure he has. Yeah. So just let's hold off on him for a few minutes because we have a couple of more important things to get to. And actually, we'll look at his comments before we pull. I would like to see what he says before we pull up the paperwork. So I want people to know that we were supposed to do one podcast on this, talk about Mueller, his role in it, and then move on. But since Keith is trying to bring my credibility into question, now we have to talk about the rest of the case.
Yeah,
which I really wasn't prepared to do last week.
Morphed into something else,
So
well, really quick in the lawsuit, right? Where would the point out to the people who are watching, right? Where is exactly that? And I've read that part, but where does it affirm the accusation, right?
Okay. Let's scroll up a little bit. There is a page where it says that the judges are saying we're drawing all what's the word I'm looking for? All reasonable inferences in favor of the plaintiff.
Okay.
I don't have the page. I don't have the page number. I didn't write the page number down, but it's right there, right before they started getting into the liability of everybody. That's the very last page. It would have to be above that.
Well, and then I want to read that part right there that I was just reading because maybe I want to understand it better. But I want to read that what you're saying first. Supreme Court establishment maybe can treat as persons context. And I want to show people, right? Because I want to start there. I want to say, look, this is what you mean, and then we can go into talking more about it. Complaint Montero spoke in capacity as a private citizen. It says here, on appeal, Montero contends once again that CLUE clearly establishes that a person's union activity criticizing management is categorically protected by the First Amendment. But as noted above, CLUE was decided before Garcetti and focused solely on whether or not the union plaintiffs have spoken on a matter of concern.
That's good to read.
It is clear that the courts must determine both whether the plaintiff spoke on a matter of public concern and whether he or she spoke as a private citizen. Moreover, in Weintraub, we plainly rejected the notion that one is necessarily speaking as a private citizen when acting in his or her union capacity. Because the specific question of whether the plaintiff's alleged union remarks were protected by the First Amendment was not beyond debate at the time of Moran and Mueller's alleged retaliation against Montero, nor does CLUE hold otherwise, we conclude as a matter of law that under the claims as pled by Montero, these defendants are protected from liability by qualified immunity. Supreme Court establishes that municipality must be construed as persons in the context of violation.
That's where they talk about the city getting off. They're letting the city off. They're saying Ray did not meet his burden of proof that the city really had anything to do with this.
Okay. So I won't read that then. Policy was ratified by decision makers.
Yeah.
It is an amendment complaint. Montero stressed that the YPD, acting through its final policy-making officials, aided Olson and his allies in retaliating against him, and that the department adopted an unwritten policy in doing so by condoning and ratifying this action. The mere assertion that a municipality has such a custom or policy is insufficient in the absence of allegations of fact tending to support, at least circumstantially, such an inference. So obviously is what he's saying. I guess still talking about the city here. So let me just read the conclusion then.
Sure.
My throat, I don't know. I'm sorry. For conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, we affirm the district's court's dismissal of the plaintiff's First Amendment retaliation claim against defendants Moran, Mueller, and the city of Yonkers. Vacate the district court's dismissal of the plaintiff's First Amendment retaliation claim against defendant Keith Olson and remand for further proceedings.
Right. Now, let me explain what that means. Okay. For the foregoing reasons, we affirm the district court's dismissal of the plaintiff's First Amendment retaliation claims against defendants Moran, Mueller, and the city of Yonkers for different reasons. Okay. The city of Yonkers, it was dismissed because Ray didn't meet his burden of proving that they violated his First Amendment right. He didn't make a good case against them. They dismissed it against Moran and Mueller with qualified immunity, basically saying that we agree that this behavior was retaliatory, but you're shielded by this legal technicality because no precedent had been set before. So go ahead, walk the earth, be good boys, don't do this again.
So essentially, I mean, in a way, Olson is right and you're right? Because
that's what I'm saying. He was playing words.
So
dismissed.
It was dismissed.
If it hadn't been dismissed, it would still be ongoing.
Right. It was dismissed because of qualified immunity.
Right.
Nothing else. Not because it didn't happen.
Right.
Basically. So got a lot of comments here, actually.
Sure. So why don't we go through some of them, and then I'll show you what happened with Keith.
All right. Paul Costello, the civil courts will stop him and find the shit out of the city. Here, Keith also says, Anthony, your lack of understanding of the law is disturbing. Not one single accusation in this lawsuit was affirmed.
False.
The lawsuit was dismissed before it even ever got to that point.
False.
Right? That's what he says.
False. He's lying.
Of course, let's hold on to the facts when you were saying, hold on. Your credibility is shot due. You're consistently misinformed. And then so we have Larry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You want to go ahead?
I was going to say, let's go back and go through that with a fine-tooth comb because it's in there.
Larry says, I was confused after the last podcast because that guy kept interrupting. Now I get it. The Squirrel Master is basically on court record of retaliatory behavior in the workplace. The lawsuit was dismissed before we had the opportunity to challenge any of the accusations. And this is a good comment here Larry makes really quick. The outcome of the case doesn't matter. It is, however, very important to this officer's case because the same retaliatory conduct was done again. Who cares about anything else in that old lawsuit? So basically, it doesn't matter because it's showing the retaliatory behavior of individuals within the department. And that's basically essentially what you're saying happened to you. Right, it was retaliation. So regardless if it was dismissed unqualified immunity, that does not matter. The retaliation still happened.
All right. So now you know what? You can pull it up again, and you can scroll through it over there.
Yeah, you're right, Larry. You're right. So you have to
I'm going to find you the language where all reasonable inferences are drawn in favor of the plaintiff.
Yeah. Okay. So we can be, show specifically what you're, because again, this is not everyone, you're not either. I mean, you're probably more than me because you're an officer, but we don't, this legal stuff is not always easy to understand. And I never understood why these contracts, when I read them and these, lawsuits and I have these crazy terms and words, just talk regular English.
Yeah. They speak in tongues, in a courtroom.
That's why people are scared of attorneys, mea culpa and all that other stuff. Right. And I also have, if it's helpful, I have access to LexisNexis. I can pull up other stuff, different files.
Keith, you got to understand where Keith is coming from. He's the sitting PBA president. What else can he do except, try to sabotage the podcast by coming on and denying everything? And trying to say that my understanding of the case is all wrong. I read the full thing. This is the opinion of the appellate court judges, all 5 of them, and I'm going to find it.
I mean, I want to be fair and let Keith Olson and anyone else, for that matter, give their side.
I understand
I think
you
it's
let
important.
him talk, but I'm just trying to explain to the other viewers what he's trying to do.
Sorry, but I missed the first few minutes and don't remember specifics of Ray's case. Was he removed from your union? Initially, right? He was.
Ray was removed from the union. What happened was Keith sent Billy Pataki and a couple of the other union board members around trying to get signatures to kick Ray out. He had to get a certain amount. I think it was 50 something out of 450 or 500 PBA members. It took him 6 months to do it, which violated the union's bylaws. He had a month to do it. It had to be done before the following meeting. All right. It took him 6 months. He was hanging the petition on all of the precinct walls. No one would sign it. Mother was throwing a pissing match up in the 4th precinct because nobody would sign it. Eventually, he did get the 50-something signatures, all New Jacks who didn't know Ray from Adam. So we kicked him out of the union. Ray challenged that, and at the in the state court, he ran into this judge named Neary. Judge Neary, I can't remember his first name, and he was just part of the boys' club. He was friends with Andy Quinn. Let Andy Quinn do the hearing from a beach.
And really quick, and not to get sidetracked, but I always have to just touch on these points. Yeah. This is the issue. Why I, the problem or the reason I'd say why I mention the fact that many of our city court judges are simply appointed because they're part of the Friends and Family Network. I've been talking about one specifically, Alexandra Bessesi, who just comes out of nowhere, gets appointed city court judge. Right. And that's why. I mean, because of issues like this, they come up, they go in front of these judges now that they've been appointed because of, the people that are elected now and all that, and they're going to go against you, right? They have to pay that favor back. So it's scary to think that, now that I know what I know, that there are judges out there that, they're not going to do the right thing. And so it's just, we have to pay attention to that, to these judges' appointments, because they go from city court to the Supreme, they move up, they go in there after a few years, really no experience, but it's all about favors. And then they're going to do what they need to do for those people. And and Zahi Jerris was involved in stuff like that. It's in there, you read it, and it's scary. It's crazy that you can't trust the system anymore. I mean, look what happened to you. You're a lieutenant, man. Flawless record. It's not supposed to happen to you, Anthony.
Right.
And you're white.
Well, that doesn't mean shit.
I mean, shit. For some people, they'll say that it does. It means a lot. And I don't want to make it like I'm being funny, really. But I mean, just saying, you had everything going for you. I mean, this should not happen to you. It's just crazy.
Keith is there. Right? I know he is.
Did they continue to deduct his union dues? I'm sorry, quick.
Some people told me that they did, and that was a major point of contention. I didn't talk to Ray about that. Probably, because why not steal from him, at the same time that you're doing all this other stuff from him? You have mayoral immunity, so you're not going to get in trouble for it anyway. All the money you're stealing from the members is going to the Spano crime family. It's going up to Boss Tweed, Nicky Boy 703 account, Empire Strategic Planning. So what's he going to do? Punish you for it? You're giving it to him. You're giving it to the Spanos.
Larry says, explain the significance simply, and let's move on to this officer's horrible experience. A vote was held at an open meeting on whether to kick him out of the union. The vote was overwhelmingly to kick him out.
Okay, so here you go with Keith telling stories from union meetings that can neither be proven nor disproven with any paperwork, with anything except the accounts of people who were there. And I can't even tell you how many phone calls I got disputing all of the shit that he said and all these little one-line bombs that he was punching into his keyboard last week. All right,
guys, listen, for people watching or who would want to watch, create a fake email account and log on to YouTube, and you can watch live anonymously. It's not really that hard. I mean, if you can email us and say, hey, I love to watch anonymously. Can you create me an account? And we'll do it for you. How about that? We'll do it for you, and then we'll send you the password and username. You can log on every time, watch Basement Politics from YouTube, and comment all you want, right? As long as you're respectful. Obviously, if very disrespectful comments, I won't post up. But yeah, so they kicked him out of the union and then take his dues anyway. Yeah.
Right. And so Neary, who was part of the boys club, basically said, this is a union's a private organization. It's got nothing to do with the government. So he dismissed the case. Then Ray appealed that. Went before a panel of 5 judges in the appellate court at the state level in Brooklyn and won. They said what Keith Olson did was arbitrary and capricious, and they reinstated him into the union. Am I lying, Keith?
Right. So I think for the most part, I think a lot of people anyway, especially are are more likely to believe what you're saying. And no disrespect to Keith Olson, right? I like to be fair. I'm just no disrespect to Keith Olson, but I think more people are, likely, and me too, but just from my experience, are likely to believe you, right? And what you're saying, just from their own experiences, from, experiences of friends, family members, people call me a lot. People send me messages, emails, and all that all the time with their experiences. So it happens to not just you, not just me, a lot of people. And so, I think, this is what I told one other person who was telling me about their experience. I said, I think the more people could start coming out and telling their stories, right? Just to really prove that this is happening, not just to one person who's bitter or disgruntled, right? Like they tried to make you out to be, you're a disgruntled person, you just want your job back, but you can't get it. You just whatever, the more people will see that, right? And the harder it'll be for them to run any interference, because they can't run interference to everyone, right? And so eventually we'll start to crack this, corruption, right? And start to break it down and crumble it down. And, and I think that, if anything else, what we've done here is to show that the people are tired. Enough is enough. People are,
Let's talk about for a second what he's saying. Can you go back to that part with the liability of defendants Mueller and Moran?
Is that on the Justia page?
Yeah, we just read it.
Yeah,
it's on page.
Yeah,
it's on page 37 there.
I got it.
You got it. Now I'm going to read it. I have it in front of me as well. Okay. Defendants Moran and Mueller argue that even if Montero's speech was constitutionally protected and they took adverse employment actions against him for the speech, they are, even on the present state of the proceedings, entitled to qualified immunity. We agree. Does that sound like an argument of we didn't do any of this? Or does that sound like, yeah, well, we kind of did it, but hey, we should get off with qualified immunity? Keith is saying that they challenged his assertions. It doesn't matter. You lost, bro. It's all here. Everybody who's watching this can go to this Justia website and read the whole thing from start to finish. It's not written in Latin. It's not that hard to read. It's 43 double-spaced pages.
So you're saying that right here, this line where defendant Moran and Mueller argued that even if Montero's speech was constitutionally protected and they took adverse employment actions against him, right, that they have qualified immunity. That's what you're saying?
That's their argument.
Right.
That's their, does that sound like they're challenging his assertions, Keith?
Well, it looks like they're just trying to basically say, listen, it doesn't even matter. We get qualified immunity. Let's keep it moving.
That's what they said. Now ask Keith.
But I mean, I don't know if that says necessarily, and I just, to be honest, I don't know if that's saying that, it just means like they just want to get this thing over with, right? So we have
I understand that, but what he's saying is that, no, we challenged the things that he said. Does it look like it?
No, it doesn't look like they've challenged it. No.
So Keith, answer me this. Did they get qualified immunity or not? Did they get immunity? Because qualified just means limited. What it basically means is we're not giving them blanket immunity. Ray can still go back to the state court and challenge, for things like, workplace harassment, hostile work environment, things like that. So qualified in this sense that is used here just means limited. You're getting limited immunity. Keith, did they get immunity or not? It's a simple question.
And one of the things I want to mention, I want to bring this up again, in relation to your case, right? Going back to your case and being, is that the difference between Montero and you, right, and why Montero, was able to somewhat be successful getting his job back and everything versus you, was that Chucky Gardner was the police commissioner at the time, right, and you had Mueller as the commissioner. That was the huge difference, right? Right. That's the huge difference. And, so that means that, therefore he went to the psychologist or the shrink, as you said, that was referred to him by Chucky Gardner, who was not going to throw him under the bus. Whereas you were sent to the IMA, the quack.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the even though your situations are similar in retaliation, but that's why your outcomes were different.
Right. See, they sent Ray. Chucky sent Ray. Keith Olson and Tommy Felon went up to City Hall to see Vinny Spano and the lawyers up at Corp Counsel. And they said, oh, this guy Montero, he's going around attacking cops. Ray admitted to pacing Billy Pataki one at a union meeting, but people told me that it happened exactly the way Ray said. That Billy tried to block the door, not to let him leave, put his hand up to try to stop him physically, and Ray just smacked him, and then a big brawl broke out. Ray admitted that. Then they tried to say that he assaulted John Viviano Sr. up at the fourth precinct. So the two union presidents, because John Viviano was a sergeant, so Tommy Felon had to get involved, I guess. Okay, he was the CLSA president at the time. Olson and Tommy Fellon went to go see Vinny Spano and Corp Counsel over at City Hall and said, you got to send this guy for a psychological evaluation. The whole purpose of which is they were going to try to rig it against him, which is what John Mueller did. See, Chucky was using a guy, I know his name, I'm not going to say it. He worked in the Citibank building. Is it the Citibank building up on North Broadway across from St. John's Hospital? Right? There's a bank there. Is it Citibank?
Yeah, I believe so.
Right. Okay.
City or Chase.
So he worked up in that building. And I told this story last week. Ray had 2 appointments because it was a real evaluation, not this fraud where you go sit for 25 minutes and then you get hammered. It was a real evaluation, so he had to go back twice. And in between visits, Mueller called the guy and tried to sabotage Ray anonymously. Just said that he was a YPD chief, wouldn't leave his name. And tried to tell him all about race. It's all made up nonsense. Okay, so when Ray walked into the second appointment and said, Doc, this is all political. I'm the union president. They're trying to bury me. The doctor said, you know what? In light of this phone call that I got from this idiot, I think you're right. So go back to work.
So someone tried to put it in his head that this, these negative things about Montero prior to he arriving there, and it didn't work.
So So did Keith answer?
No.
Did he say whether or not Mueller and Moran got qualified immunity? Because we already know what the answer is. But is he admitting it? Because my follow-up question is going to be, Keith, do innocent people get immunity? Do they need immunity? Do people who have been cleared of wrongdoing need immunity? Then why did they get immunity?
Immunity from the truth,
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, I believe you've offered the gentleman a link to come on the pod and have a conversation in real time, and it was refused. That shows a lot. Absolutely. That shows a lot. And I say this to the elected officials who don't come on my show, but they'll go on to, the guy who pled guilty to a child sex crime and had child porno in his computer. They'll go on his podcast, right? But they won't come on mine. And they'll talk about me on his podcast. So that does say a lot when people, don't confront, the accusations or allegations that are being made about them. And they say, no, that's not true. That's not true. But I won't, confront you on it. Right. I mean, and when I say something about the podcast, they would try to, those who hate it for their reason, whatever, right. They try to knock it. But obviously it's doing something when you come on and you comment, you felt the need to comment to, try to whether defend yourself or, give your side of it. It's obviously, it means something, right, for you to do that. That's why you did it. Otherwise, so that says a lot about the podcast, right? So
the affirmation of their behavior is inherent to the granting of qualified immunity. Okay? If the court didn't agree that they acted that way, then there's no reason to give them qualified immunity. You understand? Right. It's very, very simple. And I couldn't, it's tough to skim through 43 pages worth of writing live on a podcast. But for people who want to go read it, it is in there. It says in there somewhere, one of the judges says, we draw all reasonable inferences in favor of the plaintiff, in plain English. I just tried to skim through it.
And I'll post it, I'll download it and post it for people who want to read through it.
Now, just so we can clear up all of the nonsense that Keith was injecting into the conversation last week, let's go ahead and talk about how the case ended with him. I sent you a couple of other emails. One of them is called, let me see, what did I call it?
You have audio evidence, IAD next week, training.
No. I just sent you 4 emails immediately before the podcast.
Yeah.
One of them says Olson's second dismissal request.
Oh, I clicked the wrong folder. All right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. All right. So that's what the one you want, Olson's all right.
Yeah.
All right.
There's 3 documents in there.
Yeah. No, I got it.
It's all one document, but it's 3 separate pages. Okay. So I sent them to you as 3 separate documents.
Oh, I'm looking in the wrong folder. I got it. I have a 2 folder for you actually now. I should just have them 1. I got it. Which one? You want the first one, right? Request 1?
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, it's just the first page of 3 different documents. Okay, so what happened at the appellate court was they dismissed Moran and Mueller with qualified immunity. They said, as far as Olson, he was not one of Ray's supervisors as the other 2 were. So it's still murky as to whether or not he was acting as a state actor, which is necessary for him to be, deemed to have violated Ray's First Amendment rights. For some reason, they decided not to treat that matter right then and there in the appellate division. They kicked it back to the district court. This Judge Karras, who was the guy who initially dismissed the whole thing in the first place.
Right.
All right. Now, when it went back to the district court, Keith Olson and his attorney, Andy Quinn, the PBA attorney, I guess realizing that the worst that was going to happen to Keith was that he was also going to be found to have violated Ray's First Amendment rights and also get granted qualified immunity like his two friends did, wrote a letter to the judge basically saying that.
Right.
And so we'll just read the first paragraph. This is from Andy Quinn to the judge. As you are aware, the Quinn law firm has been retained to represent Keith Olson by reference matter, in accordance with the court's order, and in light of the decision of the Second Circuit of Appeals relative to Olson's previously filed and granted motion to dismiss pursuant to federal blah, 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 blah. We hereby respectfully submit this new request to dismiss the complaint on the grounds that either, one, if the court finds that Olson was acting as a state actor, he is entitled to qualified immunity like his two goofball friends were. Or, two, if the court determines that Olson was not acting as a state actor, then he is not subject to suit under the relevant code. In either circumstance, the court is compelled to dismiss the complaint. So what he's saying is that in either circumstances, whether he was a state actor and is going to get qualified immunity or wasn't a state actor and is therefore not deemed to have been in violation of Ray's First Amendment right, either way, he's not going to be subject to any damages or punishments.
Right.
So let's just dismiss this right now.
Right.
What's the point? Okay.
Right. And that's what I was saying, right? That's why they went straight with the qualified immunity, right? Because they just want to get it doesn't matter anyway, get qualified immunity. So let's just, go that route.
So you say before we even start these proceedings, know that either way it ends, I'm not going to get punished. So what's the point?
Right.
Now, if I guess we could read it. We could read the whole thing. Inasmuch as the court is fully familiar with the underlying complaint and procedural history, will not burden the court with a detailed procedural history of the case. However, certain information is necessary to a determination of the instant letter motion and will be referenced herein. On October 13, 2015, Montero filed his first amended complaint, which alleged that he was retaliated against by members of the YPD, including Olson, for making a speech at a PBA meeting while in his capacity as PBA vice president, wherein he was critical of management of the department. Montero premised federal jurisdiction pursuant to the code. Thereafter, all defendants moved to dismiss the complaint on various grounds. The common argument being that, you go to the second document, same email.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just zoom out.
Yeah, right. The common argument in favor of dismissal is that Montero did not sufficiently allege. Okay, so he's saying, he didn't sufficiently make his case, but they lost that argument. Montero did not sufficiently allege that his speech was protected by the First Amendment, and he could therefore not state a claim for retaliation. December 20th, 2016, this court granted the motions to dismiss filed by the defendants and the city, finding that Montero's speech was not constitutionally protected inasmuch as Montero had not spoken as a private citizen. Okay, next paragraph. Montero took this appeal to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. They heard oral arguments. The court thereafter issued its opinion on May 16, 2018, reversing this court's opinion and order. Ironically, the circuit based its decision on an issue not specifically argued by either party, that this court's determination that Montero's speech as pled was at least tangentially related to his job duties and was therefore unprotected First Amendment speech was incorrect. Okay, so the appellate court overturned it. The circuit court held that Montero's union speech was not part and parcel of his concerns about his ability to properly execute his official job duties and did not fall within his employment responsibilities, and that he was therefore speaking as a private citizen whose speech was protected. Right? As to the claims against the specific defendants, the circuit court held that Montero failed to plausibly allege that the city of Yonkers could be held municipally liable for violating his First Amendment rights and therefore dismissed his claim against the city. As to the individually named defendants, the circuit court dismissed Mueller and Moran from the complaint, finding that since the role of a citizen analog in determining whether one speaks as a citizen remained murky at the time of the alleged retaliation, they were protected by qualified immunity. Okay, so basically what that means is there was no civilians. There was no civilians at these meetings, so there was no reason that they would assume that Ray was speaking as a private citizen.
Right.
Therefore, when I say they, I'm saying Mueller and Moran.
Right.
They're thinking that this is government business. He's not speaking as a private citizen. So
everyone here is police officers, pretty much. We all work.
So there's no reason to think this is First Amendment retaliation.
Right.
The judge let them off, basically saying that it was reasonable to think that, even though he ruled against that. He said no, it was First Amendment retaliation violation. Okay, but you might not have known it at the time, so you get off with qualified immunity. Don't do it again. Right. So, as to Olson, the circuit court noted that Olson did not claim qualified immunity as a defense, so it was precluded from dismissing the complaint as to him, though the circuit noted that the parties have not addressed whether Olson qualifies as a state actor in the first place and if he can therefore be liable under the code. This issue was not raised by either party in briefs or oral argument, nor was it raised at oral argument. The city did note that the issue as well as whether Olson would be entitled to qualified immunity could be addressed back at the district court level after the appellate court remanded it back to the district court to examine that one specific issue. We know Mueller and Moran were state actors. We granted them qualified immunity right on the spot. They're done, dismissed. Was Keith Olson a state actor? If not, he gets off scot-free. He's totally, not liable for any of this. He didn't violate Ray's First Amendment rights. He doesn't even need qualified immunity. If he was a state actor, then he did violate Ray's First Amendment rights, and he does need qualified immunity. Okay? That's what this paragraph is saying. In his First Amendment complaint, plaintiff alleges that Olson is a state actor. Defendant Keith Olson is and has been at all relevant times president of the Yonkers PBA and a police officer within the department. He is sued in his individual capacity for actions taken under color of state law. To the extent that Olson is sued in his capacity as an employee of the city of Yonkers, acting in his capacity as a state actor, then he is entitled to have the complaint dismissed on the grounds of qualified immunity.
Yeah, I see what they're saying. I got it. Yeah, I see what they're saying because the way Montero, filed the lawsuit and filed him in his official capacity as well.
Right. So that's Keith's attorney saying, hey, these other two asshats got qualified immunity. The worst you can do to my client is find that he was a state actor, and then he gets it too. So what's the point of even going ahead with this? Okay, we can read page 3 just for good measure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I see what they were doing. That's a good attorney. Yeah, I mean, I got to say that attorney, that's a good defense that he put up there. Right. That makes sense. I mean, and this is court. That's what you got to do. You got to create the reasonable doubt, right? And
right.
It's your job, or I should say, it's Ray Montero's job, and to prove it, with beyond the reasonable doubt. But it's Keith Olson's attorney to simply create the doubt.
Well, he did that.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
The court didn't argue that they engaged in the behavior.
Right.
To the extent the plaintiff's complaint may be interpreted as alleging that Olson was acting not as a state actor, but as a union official, acting in his capacity as union president, then he has failed to sufficiently allege claim. Okay, is axiomatic, meaning basically necessary. A plaintiff must allege that the defendant was acting as a state actor under the color of law, and then it just cites the actual law to sustain an action under Code 1983. The conduct at issue must have been committed by a person acting under color of state law. So let's go to the next paragraph. To the extent that Montero alleges that Olson was acting in his role as union president, his complaint fails to state with specificity how Olson acted in concert with the city of Yonkers. Okay, it seems to say that Montero specifically withdrew any claim that Olson and the city were working conspiratorially. His complaint fails to make any such allegation. So I guess Ray didn't specifically say that Olson was acting in concert with the city.
Right.
So this is Andy Quinn doing his best to get the case dismissed on behalf of his client.
Yada, yada, yada. The case was ultimately dismissed.
That's right. Now let's get to why it was dismissed, Keith. All right. Let's go to Chris Watkins' response. That was Ray's attorney, worked for Sussman at the time. All right. This responds to Mr. Quinn's letter seeking dismissal of his client, Keith Olson, on the alternative grounds that Olson was either not acting under color of law and therefore not subject to liability, or he is entitled to qualified immunity. While several of the amended complaints allegations reflect that Olson was acting in his capacity as a police officer vis-a-vis retaliatory acts against plaintiff, ultimately that inquiry makes little difference in light of the Second Circuit's holding that plaintiffs protected. Next page. The bottom is just a footnote. It's an important footnote. Let's read it, though. Wait a minute. Go back. Yeah. As defendant knows, but for quality immunity, Olson could also be held liable under Section 1983 if he was acting in concert with state actors and with respect to retaliating against the plaintiff. So what this is saying is, what this little paragraph here says, that even if Keith is deemed not to have been acting as a state actor, apparently there's case law out there that says that if, a non-state actor, someone acting in his capacity, I guess, as a private citizen, colludes with state actors, then he's basically deemed to have been a state actor and can be held liable.
But what I was thinking is that, okay, so if so this, I don't know, I don't understand. Why didn't the court, I guess, maybe determine if he violated his First Amendment right, because he was acting as a in the capacity of a union member or whatever, not as a police officer, then how does Keith Olson get qualified immunity? Right, because if the setting, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You clear it up.
I was saying, if the environment that they're in, right, when this is happening, is a union meeting, right, and so he's violating his First Amendment right at this union meeting, right, as he's acting as a union representative or whatever, not as a police officer in his official capacity. Right, how did they even get qualified immunity?
Well, he didn't. This is what we're going to see on the second page, right? It never got to that point, because Ray, realizing he was never going to collect any damages either way, agreed to allow the case to be dismissed. Let's read it. I forget where we left off on the last page. The activity was not clearly established as protected by the First Amendment at the time of the underlying events in this case, thus entitling the individual offenders to qualified immunity. Given that Olson has now asserted the defense of qualified immunity, plaintiff acknowledges that regardless of whether Olson was acting under the color of law, plaintiff's First Amendment claim against him cannot be sustained. So in other words, what he's saying is, we acknowledge that Olson is going to get away with this one way or the other.
Right.
Either the district court is now treating only Olson, because Mueller and Moran are already gone with their qualified immunity. The only question left is, was Keith Olson acting as a state actor? In either way, whether he was or he wasn't, he's not gonna face any punishment, because he's either going to get qualified immunity if he was acting as a state actor, or he's going to get off scot-free anyway if he wasn't acting as a state actor. So why litigate it? Why spend all this money on attorneys to go forward litigating something that's going to end in no punitive damages anyway? So Ray said, okay, fine. Case dismissed.
Right.
All he wanted was the moral victory. They violated my First Amendment rights, and now this is case law going forward.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. Now, this is the judge's
but they didn't really. There was no real determination, though, right? Now, yes, this could be case law in that they look at this and read it and say, okay, see what happened here and what was the outcome here, right? And so now there's that whole question of acting in as a state, as in the official capacity, right? And the state as a state actor or acting as a private citizen, right? They never really made that, they never really determined anything here, right? They just got the qualified immunity.
They did. It's just, unless you want to do a 4-hour podcast, we're going to
let people read
that stuff for themselves.
What I'm saying is, okay, let me just, the PBA, the union, right? Who was that formed by? Who created the PBA?
The PBA, it's been, 100 years ago.
Right. But who created it, right?
Who created the actual person's name?
Well, I don't know, but just saying, who are they? Like, I don't even have to say the name. And they were an individual, maybe a police officer, but acting as a private individual, right? Like, as you would any unit. My point is, it wasn't created by the government, right? It wasn't created by the government, right? So if they're acting in this union meeting, right, no one is acting as a state actor, because that has nothing to do with the state, right? The government.
That's why it was murky as to whether or not Keith was going to be deemed to have acted as a state actor because of his collusion with Moran and Mueller, who were clearly acting as state actors. They're not members of the PBA. They weren't at those meetings. They're just his supervisors,
right? Who
took all these outrageous measures against him at the behest of Olson.
Right.
Olson went to them. They were his bosses, and they started launching fraudulent retaliatory investigations. They transferred him out of SIU. They had him arranged for him to go to a shrink. It's
right.
They went after him with both barrels.
There's two separate cases here, really, ultimately, right? There's two separate cases here. Then I think that, and I don't know, maybe I'm getting it wrong, but it seemed like it was being combined. You have a First Amendment, case, right? Your violation of your First Amendment case, and then you have a retaliation case, right? A workplace retaliation case. They can't really. I mean, I get it, because the person spoke out, he got retaliation, but violating his First Amendment rights would be like, prohibiting from being able to speak out. And I guess, they don't want to do that because of retaliation, but that's two separate cases, I think, right? So, when they were acting, and he should have just focused on, I guess, the First Amendment right one, right? Because that's where, they basically shut him down and not allowed him to freely speak and say what he wanted to in this meeting, right? Because he feared retaliation in the workplace, right? So
he didn't fear it. That's the thing. He didn't fear it.
But he got it though, right? He got retaliation, right? And maybe he's not fearing it, but he knows that it is possible, right? So what he's doing in a private capacity, right, could affect his, official capacity, right? But he has to kind of prove that, right? And I don't know if he really necessarily did prove that all the way. And so I think he should have stuck with just the first. What?
Well, the First Amendment lawsuit in the federal court was the only one that he did.
What do you mean? Did he what?
That's the only lawsuit that he filed was for the First Amendment violation.
But he's talking about retaliation here, and they're talking about that they're even saying that there was no sufficient evidence for retaliation or showing that there was retaliation.
Where do you see that?
Right.
Where do you see that?
No, there was. I'll have to get it back. I was reading a bunch of different stuff because I have different files anyway. But my point is this: that was all it was all unofficial, right? I mean, well, not it wasn't. They weren't acting as in their official capacity as police officers. This was outside of work, essentially.
No,
right?
Mueller and Moran definitely.
Right. Mueller and Moran. I'm not, but aside from that, so fine, they get the qualified immunity. But Olson, right, as the PBA president, wasn't acting in his official capacity, right, doing his job as a police officer.
That's what was about to go under examination back in the district court. That's when these letters were submitted. Because Keith Olson said, "Hey, before we even get into examining this, you should recognize, Judge, that the worst that's going to happen to me is that you're going to deem that I was acting as a state actor, and then in which case I'm going to get qualified immunity, just like my two buddies did." That's the worst.
But how would they come to that conclusion?
Probably by citing the law that was in that footnote, that paragraph on the previous page. Sussman or his guy Chris Watkins would have said, look, he's colluding with people who are already deemed to have been behaving as state actors, which, according to this case law cited on the bottom, makes him a state actor too. As defendant notes, but for qualified immunity, Olson could also be held liable under Section 1983 if he was acting in concert with state actors with respect to retaliating against plaintiff. Okay.
I think that kind of muddied it up by throwing Moran and Mueller in there. If he had just kind of filed it against Keith, right, and then that would have been easier to prove that they, that it kind of seems like that whole whether they were state actors or not kind of.
No, you have to file it against Moran and Mueller because they're the ones that took all the actions. It was like Keith was the one. He was, the boss almost.
Right.
He was ordering all of this stuff. Not really. I mean, they were willing participants, but.
I guess what I'm saying is that he should have just said, listen, my First Amendment right is being violated here.
That's what he said.
Well, hold on. If left out Mueller and Moran, just simply saying that my First Amendment rights are being violated here. I'm afraid to speak out. I have spoken now. I have gotten workplace retaliation, and so I no longer feel comfortable speaking out or saying anything I want. But it's vital and important that I do speak out because of X, Y, and Z. But without leaving, without including Moran and Mueller, because now you got to prove all that stuff, right? I mean, because you have to prove what they were doing also. Right. And then now you start throwing in whether it was state actors or not. But if you just kept it to Olson only, he wasn't acting as a state actor because they were in that union meeting. Right. That had nothing to do with any other potential state actors or not. Right. And I think that's kind of threw it, made it more complex and made him have to.
If you don't bring Mueller and Moran in, then how can you bring in all the retaliatory stuff that they did? Because that's what the case was about. It was about being transferred out of SIU. It was about Moran, launching unauthorized investigations without the approval of his captain.
Well, you can show that happened without, having to bring in Mueller and Moran. Just saying that because, ultimately that result, that was Keith Olson's, he did that. Whether Moran and Mueller, actually were the ones that signed off on the transfer or whatever, but it was the result of what Keith Olson wanted based off, me speaking out at this meeting, my free, my speech, my First Amendment right. Right. You know what I'm saying? And then
look, I don't know. Maybe it could have been done a million different ways.
Right.
But,
I get it. Hindsight is 20/20, but it just, I believe, I understand what you're, Ray Montero saying and what you're saying. And I'm not even discrediting you or not believing you. And doesn't change anything for me. But I understand also where, what Keith Olson may be saying here as well. It's just what I'm saying, and
Right,
so
but look at what he's saying right now. Leave that
the
comment
law,
there.
yeah, the
Again,
law
we
is the
never
law.
got.
There, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to
You
read. The
read it.
law is the law. There were no grounds for the lawsuit, even if that allegations were true. Again, we never got to the part where we have to challenge his ridiculous allegation. The plaintiff doesn't get to allow a lawsuit to be dismissed. The law decides that. You couldn't be more wrong. I guess you were saying
That's
something.
false.
There was no determination that any of the allegations actually happened, and that's what I'm saying. Like there's no real determination, right? They're saying even if it did happen, right? And I've said that sometimes too. Like even if I was lying, or even if I did do that, I wouldn't do this. But even though I didn't do that, right? So that's why I was kind of looking for it. I just wanted to, that's correct, Freddie. I did not even request qualified immunity. That's what he's.
The plaintiff can agree to have the. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. The plaintiff can agree to have the case dismissed if the defendant has requested it.
Funny guy.
Listen,
right.
I'm not saying it was.
He could dismiss
What I'm
and
saying
just
is,
say, I don't want to go through with this case anymore, this lawsuit anymore, and it can be dismissed based on
Keith
that.
requested a dismissal.
Right.
And looking at the reasons that he cited for the dismissal, Montero said, okay, I agree with you. Either way this goes in the district court, whether or not you were a state actor, you're going to get off the hook. You're not going to be punished for this. So why do I want to spend money on my attorneys to go back and litigate whether or not you were a state actor when you're only going to get qualified immunity if you were?
That's not how it works.
Keith, did John Mueller and Brian Moran get qualified immunity? Yes or no? Simple question. Did they get qualified immunity or not?
And they could say that they've gotten they got qualified immunity simply so they didn't have to go, that they went with that simply so they didn't have to go through a long drawn out.
No, qualified immunity is not a plea deal.
No, I know it's not a plea deal, but essentially if you say that, pretty much, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, it seems like that's what happened.
This was a very, very simple case. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't big courtroom battles. Okay. Very simple.
He said, yes, they got it. They got QI.
Yes. Okay, why? Why did they get immunity? Do people who are deemed innocent of the charges against them get immunity?
Because they requested it, and they got it.
Who requests immunity? Hey, Your Honor, I didn't do any of the shit this guy is accusing me of. But can I have immunity for having done it? Does that make a wink of sense?
They're acting with the QI they're acting within the scope of their employment.
No.
Well, I don't know. That's not what it said on the other page, though. It said
No, false. QI means you did something that was a violation of his First Amendment right. But because there was no precedent establishing that beforehand, you might not have been aware of it. So we're going to let you off the hook. That's what qualified immunity means. Okay? And you can read it. It said somewhere in the document that we were reading from Justia, and it even says that you can go to like Wikipedia or something, read all about qualified immunity.
Well, I think that we went through this case. It doesn't have something where, I can say, look, Mayor, you screwed up. You should have, noticed this. I don't see anything that would, and look, I would want to point that out, right?
It does, though. It does. And,
for Anthony, sometimes, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not saying these guys didn't do maybe what they did. What I'm saying is that, it is not like a smoking gun, I guess, right? Maybe that's what I'm saying. A smoking gun is what I'm looking for, right? There's no smoking gun, but you can, imply that, that's what you're saying is what happened, right? And then you can also imply what Keith Olson is saying, what happened.
We got to find it.
So it's right here.
We have to find the
plot. I got it for you.
No, where it says all
it says qualified immunity and affirmative defense shields officials from personal liability for civil damages so long as their conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional right of which a reasonable person would have known.
Right.
So it doesn't violate an established statutory or constitutional right.
Right. So what the court said, the federal court said in this case was what you did violate a right, But because it wasn't clearly established that this behavior was a violation of that right, because it wasn't previously established that this specific kind of behavior against someone in this specific kind of a position wearing his union
And
hat,
what behavior is that exactly?
the fraudulent investigations to deter him from the course of action he was taking with his union hat on, running against Keith, speaking out against the Keith that things want to do, speaking out against Keith's cozy relationship with Edmund Hartnett, pushing for John Mueller to be the police commissioner. Okay, he was campaigning against all of this stuff. He was trying to take Keith's spot as the union president. Okay, and they were engaging in all of this stuff to try to deter him from doing that and try to deter others who were watching from doing it also. That's
Right.
called retaliation. That's the whole purpose of retaliation, is to deter similar behavior from the person who did it in the first place and also from others.
Make an example.
Right, and because it was all about his speech, the things that he was saying. Okay, the First Amendment, and a lot of people, I'm certainly no scholar on the topic, but I know a little bit. Okay, the First Amendment, a lot of people thinks, what you did was a violation of my First Amendment rights. What you did was a violation of my First Amendment rights. People think that anything that people like Facebook, like they can't kick me off. That's a violation of my First Amendment rights. No, it's not. The First Amendment only applies to the government. The government can't persecute you for speaking out.
Well, the thing with Facebook is that when you sign on to it and you create an account, you agree to certain terms, and so therefore,
right, they're a private company,
right? So
you're using their service.
Right.
So if they want to kick you off,
your pictures are no longer yours, so you can't sue me if I use your picture you put on a social media site. Just letting you guys know.
Well, whatever. But I mean, if you say something that they personally deem to be, wild or inappropriate or hate speech or whatever, they can kick you off anytime they want because they're a private entity. The government cannot take retaliatory action against you for speaking out.
Maybe a silly question, but this seemed to be an internal union issue. I always thought qualified immunity was meant for police actions during the course of their duties, pursuing suspects, not with respect to union issues among themselves. Right, and that's what they're saying, that, why do you get qualified immunity if this was, not acting in their official capacity, as state actor?
There's a difference between qualified immunity and indemnification. Indemnification means
there you go.
The city covers you for, the city basically absorbs the liability for your actions for you. In most cases, there are exceptions.
Right.
But no, qualified immunity, it's all about precedent.
The court accepts as true all factual allegations in plaintiff's amendment complaint for purpose of deciding the motions. Yeah, and and I saw that too, and I saw some.
Can you pull that back up?
I saw some other things that kind of just confused me a bit, and which is why I was asking you, what specifically is like the smoking gun? Right. And look,
I don't understand why Keith is putting now. The court accepts as true all factual allegations in plaintiff's amended complaint.
Yeah, that's just he's just putting a quote from one of the pages there from the lawsuit.
He seems to be showing us the one that I'm looking for. I don't know why he would do that. The court accepts as true all factual allegations in the plaintiff's amended complaint. Why is he showing us that? Doesn't make sense. Keith, please explain why you're showing me the sentence that I'm looking for. Well, then explain it. Freddie, send him the link.
He's got to send me his email. Look, at the very least, I think what people watching could at least get is that there's definitely a system here that's in place here that's not fair, that doesn't allow for just everyone to advance equally or fairly. You have to know people a lot of times, and and in this situation with the union, right, wanting to become a union president, right? I mean, obviously you got to know somebody, you got to be tied in with the administration and those that's running the show at the very top to be able to get into the PBA president seat. And that's because that's tied to Empire Strategic Planning. They have those contracts with them, and obviously Nick is going to want that to continue. So that whoever they have as the president of the PBA, the CLSA, has to be someone that's going to play ball, right? And so that's not everyone. And so obviously they're, in a way it's rigged. And I think that we can definitely, say is true. And we see that just based on who are the same, the individuals that have been in these positions. And, and quite often time they go from one position to the next position to the next position, right? And it's the same people, and so we see that. So at the very least, I think that's what we can get from this, whole podcast tonight and lawsuit, is that you want to become union president, PBA president, or CLSA president, advance in many positions here in the city of Yonkers. If you don't know someone, you're not going to probably get it. And if you try to say, well, I'm going to do it anyway, because I've seen this happen. It's not just this guy, right? Montero. Has been other people that wanted to do, go against the grain, and they get, retaliated on. So that's the overall, I think, message, and that we can get out of this, right?
Right. That's what Louis means when he says, you want to play it?
The members vote for the board members, including the president. They decide. But I don't know if they all, would feel comfortable voting for someone outside of, look, a lot of people have said that, past and current employees, not for necessarily the YPD, but DPW, have said that, we've had our supervisors come in, when there was this, like, some elections going on, and say, hey, you guys got to go here and attend here and show up there and bring some signs. And they'll be like, what the heck for, or whatever. Okay, but we got to go, right? So, I would imagine it's kind of the same when you got to vote for this guy. You better vote for this guy. We find out you vote for somebody else, you may not get that promotion. You may get the shit, a post or whatever, or assignment, or, and so, we know that happens, and people have said it more than, many people. So enough people to say, well, yeah, I think it might happen. So, so even if they do vote, do we really, and I'm not saying that they didn't vote fairly, or, I'm just saying that, we have to also take that into account, that we know that stuff like that happens.
Listen, Keith is even above his post as the union president. He's a made guy in the Spano crime family, okay? He has their full support. Now, for Montero and Santabello, who was one of his running mates, and Hector Cartagena and those guys, for them to
Santabello?
Me. For them to even think that they had a chance of even winning the election when they're up against the Spanos man is a little delusional. Because what do you think? They're not going to pull the, the double balloting, the, putting the Keith's goons at the ballot boxes. It's... What do you think?
Maybe Zahi Jarris' sister Susan might find 18, ballots somewhere.
You think they're not going to do anything and everything that they have to do to make sure he wins that election by any means possible? That's the Spano way. By any means possible.
And how long has Keith been?
I'm sorry, by any means necessary.
How long has Keith been the president of the PBA?
Keith, tell him, I don't know, what's it, 10 years?
10 years.
10, 11, I don't know, something like that.
And is there ever like an understanding that maybe, we got to freshen things up a little bit, and kind of have some change and new perspective? We got a lot of new people coming in, young cops. Maybe we need some new ideas up there.
No. What there is there's an understanding that if you think that way and dare to even speak about it, we'll fucking destroy you, like we did to Montero, like we did to DiMaggio, like we did to countless other guys. And then when they start the podcast about it, we'll come on the podcast and try to run interference with bullshit, little one-liners. Every minute. Keith is a seasoned politician. They used to call him Boss Tweed. I said, don't let him hear you say that. He'll like that.
I would love to.
I call Keith Pete, the Walt Disney character.
I would, and look, it's funny that he says this comment. Countless others named them, and I was going to say this. I would love for, people to come on and really, whether you love Keith and, he's right, or you don't, you love Anthony, or you agree with Anthony and he's right. I would love to know what's the consensus, especially among the police department. I mean, again, it's not difficult to create a fake account, right? And, go to Starbucks, use their Wi-Fi and make comments, go on YouTube or Facebook and, watch the podcast. You don't have to do it live. You can watch after and make comments. If you don't want to hook up to your IP address, if you feel like they're going to really go that distance to identify you, then go to Starbucks in the Bronx. I don't know how I know this stuff, but go to Starbucks in the Bronx, buy a brand new pad or whatever. Don't use your phone or whatever. Get a burner phone or an iPad brand new. Don't use a credit card. Use cash to buy it. Send someone into the store. And then
I just wrote down 4 names off the top of my head. Now, Keith,
hold on, and then you can log on, and then you can comment, and then I can get a consensus. I want to know, because I want to know, is Anthony right? Right? Do you guys feel what Anthony's saying, or is Keith Olson? Come on, guys, you can do it. Fake accounts. Let's get a consensus going, please. It's not hard. So
Right. And again, let's go. There's one more thing that I sent you that we could take a look at.
yeah, right. Like people making anonymous comments on Yonkers trip. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it wasn't me.
I agree. I don't either. I never hid behind it. I
Neither
respect
do I,
that,
buddy.
Key.
You saw my signature there when I commented on the Yonkers trip.
Why don't
I'm
we
sure
just
you
go
saw
out
it.
for beers, give Anthony his job back, invite the mayor and Vinny, and let's just say this shit was crazy. What the hell's going on here, guys? Anthony,
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I'd rather rearrange my sock drawer on a Saturday night. Listen.
Anyway.
I sent you one more thing, okay? Now we'll take a look at it because it's going to be very important going forward, and it's pretty interesting. It's a silly, cheesy little chart that I threw together, a little graph type of a thing that I threw together on the floor. Right. That's what Mueller said to Montero when he pulled him behind closed doors, and scolded him about speaking out against himself and Ray at union meetings. I don't know who the
Montero's response, city strategy.
Yeah, pull up the city strategy. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of days before I walked into internal affairs, and then the couple of weeks that followed internal affairs before I went to the doctor's visit. Then we'll get into the doctor's report.
All right.
Yeah. So this is, let me. I threw this together on the fly this afternoon. Right now, when I walk into internal affairs with an attorney, and I've basically already shown all of the evidence that I have. This is the math that they do. Right now, look to the left in the middle there. If, right, all the way on the left. Down a little bit.
Yeah.
See what says if? Okay. Now you go straight across where it says if. Basically, three things you need to put together an immediate lawsuit against the city. Okay.
It's like computer programming. If
right. You need sufficient facts. Do I have those? Sure, I do. As I said in the box there, few cases have ever been more solid, and they know that. Do I have this desire to see it through? Of course I do. John Mueller has an enemy for life in Anthony DiMaggio because he had the balls to put the family court between me and my kid for a year. That's not something I'm ever going to forgive or forget. Okay. Now, the last thing you need is steady income. Why? To pay attorneys, to fund the court action. Right. Now, it needs to be steady income. Savings, which I have plenty of, don't really matter to attorneys because they know that those eventually run out. And when you start talking about, well, I don't have the income, but I have savings, well, they get nervous, right? Believe me, I've been through this with them. They want to know that you have a good, solid, six-figure, steady income.
They want to get paid.
So that they're going to be able to collect on their invoices. Now, if I have all three of those things going straight across that line, then we go over past the equal sign. It's an immediate lawsuit. Mueller loses a catastrophic lawsuit less than 1 year into his tenure as PC. Mike Spano is forced to explain selecting Mueller in light of the results of Montero versus City of Yonkers and probably has to replace him immediately and looks like a complete idiot for having picked him. So, knowing that, go to the bottom left there, where it says all three of these variables must be in place in order for a court action to be commenced immediately and to be successful. All right. Now, we go to that last variable, steady income. You see that I have it in red on the bottom. Most attorneys will pass on the case because they anticipate trouble collecting on their invoices. Now, these numbered boxes on the top, the green ones, and that big red one on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and at the bottom 7. Those are the possible things that Mueller can do to me when he's deciding he's going to retaliate against me for disrespecting Louis. Right? He can cut me off from overtime. That's a favorite play of his. He's done it to several captains that are currently on the job because he doesn't like them because he thinks that they were making anonymous comments about him in the Tribune and for other reasons. Okay. The second thing that happens a lot is you transfer a guy because he pissed you off, and on the order you write that it's for the good of the department. So basically, they have total discretion over transfers. They don't have to give you a reason. It's very difficult to sue over a transfer. The third thing is a disciplinary write-up for conduct unbecoming. The fourth thing is a disciplinary suspension without pay for 30 days, which by law is the maximum that a cop can be suspended for disciplinary reasons without pay, 30 days. But that's a hit that I can easily absorb. And then I get back on the payroll.
What about DPW guys? Just curious.
Well, what about
anyone know? Tell me.
Number 5, the department sends me to a shrink who sends me back to work full duty. Okay. Number 6, the department, and then this is if it was a real evaluation. Number 6, the department shrink puts me on desk duty with no guns. And I wrote gold standard underneath that because that's what happens in 99% 99.9% of cases where the cop has gotten into some domestic bullshit and the department doesn't want to put him out. They want to get some use out of him so they don't have to pay another person in overtime while he's out. So they put him on a desk. They take his guns, they send him to counseling. It's standard. It's the gold standard. It's what happens almost every single time. Now, if my daughter's mother had legitimately gone to internal affairs and complained about all the bullshit that she complained about, and the department really had concerns and really sent me to a doctor, what they would do is they would call him and say, look, he's having some domestic issues, but we just want to put him on the desk. And the doctor would say, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. That's the gold standard. But as you could see with all those little blue lines I drew, none of those gets me off the payroll. They all result in me staying on the payroll, keeping my steady income. So all of those are no good. If he goes any of those routes, he's going to get himself sued immediately. He has to go down to number 7. The department shrink says, do not return him to work in any capacity. He's that dangerous. It's a massive, massive over-exaggeration in the case of a legitimate evaluation, which we all know it was not, and which you'll see when we go to the doctor's report, okay? He has to, let's read on the bottom, in that red box. Knowing what the presence of all 3 variables in the equation spells for them, Mueller, Spano, and the city's attorneys attack the only variable that they can, my direct deposit, using Civil Service Law 72.5, suspension without pay, and ultimately Article 73, termination, because you're out for more than a year. The whole purpose of it is to attack that variable of the equation and get me in all types of financial trouble so that the attorneys won't come near me. Do you understand how devious this is? How diabolical?
That's what they do. That's what they do. And they do it so well that I know that it's been done many times before.
Right, but what they can't have Carlos Moran, because when they suspend you without pay, they deliver to you a letter from Carlos Moran, which says that you went for an evaluation and the doctor said this, and based on that, we're invoking Article 72 of the Civil Service Law.
Really quick,
what he can't do, what he can't do is Carlos Moran can't send you a letter saying the city sees a lawsuit coming and Bailey needs you to stop getting paid, so we're suspending you without pay based on Article 72, Section 5.
Right.
That's ridiculous. He can't do that. So they need a legitimate looking reason. That's where the doctor comes in, and that's what we're going to start getting into as we come.
Well, And you mentioned that, with the doctor, and that's why they send people to IMA, right? That's the whole goal, is to, get a bad evaluation. So
it's a payroll scam.
Right. So they can justify firing this person, and without pay, right? So you can't sue. But my question, someone actually mentioned to me, and I wanted to, and then I started to think about it. When they take you off payroll, right? When they take your, suspend you or fire you, isn't that, a violation of your right, in the sense that, the doctor's saying that you have some kind of, obviously, you're mentally, right? That's still a mental health problem, right? It's a mental health issue.
Recommended counseling.
But my point is that I'm saying is that that's still, it's not like you went and killed somebody, right? You didn't just commit murder, right? They're saying that you have, some kind of mental whatever. But now they're taking away your funds and your pension and your health insurance. So how are you, if you do have a mental health issue where, something's wrong with you, you're becoming more erratic and dangerous, why take away your health insurance and prevent you from getting medical assistance for that?
Exactly.
Right?
Listen to what you're saying. Exactly. That's how you know it's not real.
Right.
That's how you know it's a big fraud. It's Madoffian, like I like to say.
So it's like, how are you supposed to get help? I mean, if this guy, if they're right, let's say I'm talking to the people, if they're correct, he has mental health issues, he's a danger to himself and others, on the job, he can't be with a gun, right? So we're going to fire him, right? Probably sending him even off the wall, even over the edge even more. And we're going to take away his ability to support himself, to live, to get medical help that he needs, any medications and treatments that he has to get for this, that they're saying is the reason why they're letting him go. So they should at least fired you with your health insurance and stuff, and some kind of pension.
Oh yeah, because the reason.
No, I know why they did it. I know why they did it. I'm just saying though, but that's what I'm saying. Like, so isn't there some point that you can make to that where now they're violating, like, if you have, handicapped individuals, people with mental health have certain rights, certain specific rights that cannot be violated because of their conditions that they're in, right? Just like a handicapped person has a handicapped spot, right? You can't park there, only that person. So when they do that to you, they essentially like really debilitated you even more and put you in a more dangerous situation, essentially, right? If what they're saying is true, by taking away your means and resources for getting help.
Yeah,
you have
okay,
no
I see what
money,
you're saying.
no health care, no nothing, and yet they're saying that you are someone who has these issues that now you need to go see. Now you need health insurance more than ever because you have a problem, right? So I was like, that's crazy. Why would they take that away from him when he needs it more than ever now, right? To Neto to take care of himself, right?
Yeah,
so now they just left you out there in the streets, homeless and with mental health issues, like you see in Getty Square.
Yeah, I mean, look. Let me give you an example. When I was a sergeant in the 1st precinct, right? There was a cop who was having domestic issues. I'm not going to say his name. People who know him will laugh at this. He's been long retired. He was basically a good guy, an ex-Marine, but he was a grump. He was an angry kind of a dude, but he had a good heart. He wasn't a bad guy, just jaded, and I guess he must have had domestic issues, right. Because as a sergeant, and he wasn't the only one I had to do this with. When he came into work, I had to go to a locker and give him his gun and sign paperwork that I did that. And when he left, I had to get his gun from him and put it back in the locker.
Oh, wow.
They didn't want him taking his gun home. There was another cop that I supervised that was legitimately having some psychological issues. I had to take that cop's gun when that cop went home and give it back to that cop when that cop showed up to work again. Okay? Those are the kinds of measures they take when they think that someone is legitimately insane. They're so concerned that this guy's going to go home and kill his wife that they just don't want him to do it with their department issued gun.
Well, what if he does it while he's on the job?
But he can still come to work and go work on the street.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What if he's patrolling and decides to take a detour to his house and go, do what he does? I'm going inside real quick. I'm going to grab something I left in there real quick. Bam, bam, bing. So, yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. Maybe that's something, and no attorneys that do this and knowing that you have a case and they're going to win and they can get a percentage. I hear these lawyers on TV, you don't know money up front, they don't get any paid unless they win.
Oh, there are lawyers. Yeah, right. I mean, first
Jacoby
of all,
and Jake. What is it?
They don't like contingencies. They don't like contingencies, period. They definitely don't like contingencies concerning psychological cases because
they got to spend money too, getting the psychologist and all that up front.
Right,
and
you
all
got to
that.
get other doctors. Don't really go against doctors. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
You didn't call JAG Wentworth.
Not to mention, this is Westchester, so you don't know. You're going to take a case on a contingency. You have no idea if you're going to appear before some judge that eats dinner at Nick Spano's house twice a week.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. That's the problem with allowing these individuals to appoint judges, and it starts right here, folks, in the city court, and then they go into county and everything else, and that causes a problem, like you said.
But I don't need a lawyer to take it on a contingency. I have plenty of money.
No, I'm just saying, but I'm just saying for anyone else who may happen or whatever, I'm just saying that's their tactic, right? By taking your money, that's essentially what they're trying to do. So that's why I was asking. Right. But anyway, let's we'll pick up next week, Anthony. We're already in an hour and a half. Wow, almost 2 hours here. So anyway, folks, thank you for joining us. Thank you if you stayed for the entire time. We appreciate it.
Well, thank Keith for the long running time. And
thank
trying
you,
to
Keith.
interfere with his bullshit again.
I appreciate Keith coming on. And actually, I'll talk to you not today, but maybe some other day about something else involving police department and stuff like that. I want to ask you your opinion, advice on really cool.
John got qualified immunity. Mullen got qualified immunity. He's cooked. That's it. I mean, he can't be a 2-strike loser in this game, and that's what he's going to be.
2-strike loser. Anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. Anthony DiMaggio.
I know you, and they may know you in a different capacity.
Oh wait, no, that's the wrong button.
Let's get it popping.
That one too. Tasha wants to be all in the show today.
No, play the new one. Play the new.
Anthony. Oh yeah, that's my curse. I got it here.
I know you understand. But you have a problem with the detectives, you call detective sergeant. If you have a problem with that, you call detective lieutenant. I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Because you want to play this game, you're going to lose it. I'll tell you right now. I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Save this message and play to whoever you want. Okay? There's a chain of command. If
that's
you
the whole voice,
man. Sergeant, you call my lieutenant. If you have an issue with detective, you call the sergeant. Don't answer my phone call. I don't give a fuck about you. Break up.
I don't give a fuck about you either, Lou.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
We're going to leave it where it is. Let's vote on this. Let's get it popping.
I know who the fuck you think you are.
That's
We're gonna
the
leave
one,
it where
right.
it is. Let's vote on this. Let's get it popping.
Short one.
We're gonna leave it where it is. Let's vote on this. Let's get it popping.
I know how the fuck you think you are. You want to? Listen, I know how the
Wow, the way that people talk in this city. Oh my
my
God,
God.
potty mouths. Hey, Mayor Spano, you need to get some bars of soap and start handing them out to the people who work for you, man. Unbelievable potty mouths, right? Nasty. Anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. That was Ray. No, what's his name? Venturino? What's his first name?
Yeah.
Is Ray?
No, that was Louis the Liar.
No, Louis Venturino. That's what it is, not Ray. Louis Venturino. And that was Tasha Diaz. And maybe they have a lot in common. They should try dating.
Letting Helen off easy.
That's-
Yeah, I hope she likes Tito's.
Yes, I sent that text message yesterday.
This is
If you had
our-
any questions for the candidates?
Yes, but I thought it was going to be like after we went through the agenda, we would then be introduced. But I'm okay. I don't have any questions. I know.
Okay.
I'm running for city
Great.
council. Oh, actually, no,
Great for
county
city
legislator.
council.
I'm sorry, I forget.
For council.
Yeah. That's Shanae Williams running for county legislator, folks. Make sure to vote for some. You never responded, Shanae. You're not coming on my show. You asked for questions. I sent you questions. And I got no response. No response. You see, these people don't want to come on, right? When they lie, they got a lot to hide. Anyway, folks, I'm out of here. And can I get paid, Yonkers? I got to get paid, man. This guy's owed me 5 months now. Invoice. Anthony, thank you very much. I appreciate you clearing that up. Keith Olson, thank you for coming on. Also, everyone else who commented, thank you. Pete, Larry, I appreciate you guys. Everyone that's watching, thank you. Spread the word. Basement Politics. If you're just catching the Anthony DiMaggio podcast, make sure you go back. I actually have a specific folder with all the podcasts on, hopefully in order, right? So you can go back and catch up.
Somebody
And,
just texted me from Carl Hippolyte's retirement party. I didn't even know Carl was retiring.
Who?
Carl, you know Carl Hippolyte?
Nah. You retired?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to
Carl.
you, Carl. I wish I could retire. Congratulations to you. Thank you, folks. Join us next week, next Friday. We'll be back. Take care, Anthony. Can the city of Yonkers pay me my money? All right. You guys are, have 5 invoices that I've now sent. 5 months past due. Come on, guys. Can I get paid? It's obvious that the city of Yonkers try to hurt me in my business, my daycare business, right? Which is kind of my, thing that I my wife, it's really her baby and she wanted to do it. And that's, I wanted to help her do it. And she showed me the number and I said, oh, maybe this could work. And so we got into this business and we've have a lot of experience working with kids from many various ages. My wife continues to work with kids in, academic capacity and adults as well and college courses as well, but families and kids specifically as a social worker, as a counselor, as an assistant principal, as, therapist, everything, a whole bunch of different things that she does as a cheerleading coach too now, and so, we really love our business. We love our kids, it's very amazing. Recently within the past, I don't know, maybe like 5 days, we've gotten 6 to 7 new kids. People are coming and I think they're watching the podcast. A few people have mentioned me in the podcast and they said, we like, the podcast, we love it. So, they're bringing their children, their grandkids. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much to the parents that come to Little Prodigies. We love the kids, we really, really do. And, and when they come there, they don't want to leave. You got to see it like their first time, they don't want to leave, when they come to do the tour. And so that lets the parents know that this is the place for them. And so we want to continue that. We're not going to stop, we're going to move forward. But, I do want to say it's very disheartening though, that, the city of Yonkers, would not pay a small business. I mean, we've provided a service now for 5 months and we've got no money from them, not $1. Right. And I want to know, have other UPK programs been paid? I'm willing to take a gamble and say yes. Right. But we haven't. We've sent invoices now 5 months. So we've basically been working for free. On top of the fact that, we've been having a lot of difficulties opening up to fully open up. Getting our CFO was a huge challenge. We kept, having different things to do, after we were told we would, be done once we did this, then we got something else. It cost a lot of money. Now we're having to install a $10,000 fire suppression system. And the city hasn't even paid us for 5 months. Right. And it's very frustrating because they assigned us, we have 21 capacity, right? We can hold 21 kids. And they assigned us 3 kids in September in the beginning. 3 kids. We were like, well, why only 3 kids? We could hold 21. So I got a hold of the school right after Vinny Spano said he's going to call Casada, and then he called him and have him call me. He called me, we spoke, and he says that the city ran out of money. And so they had no more money, so they couldn't place any more kids, right? So that's what I was told, right? I said, really? Well, Kathy Hochul gave $360 million for this specific school year for UPK and daycare. What do you mean you guys don't have any money? Out of 400 kids, you were only able to place 150 kids? That's what I was told. Really? That's it? So I accepted that as truth. Well, take it with a grain of salt. But I was like, what else can I say, right? They ran out of money. That's what it is. But, we had parents come to us very recently who were looking for a universal pre-K to put their child in because they were not placed. And so they were put on a waiting list. And so they said, you know what? I don't want to have my child on a waiting list. We're going to find a place anyway, and we're going to just pay out of, pay or whatever. Actually, they would just say, they didn't even care who was going to pay. They didn't even know that the school would pay. They just wanted to get assigned. So they went looking for one on their own, and they found us. And the child loved it. I was going to say his name, but I don't say the name. Child loved it. Started right away. Right away. The next day he started. Right? But what's interesting is what the parent told us. She said that her child was put on a waiting list because she was told there were no more spaces available. Well, we have 18 spaces available at the time. Well, actually, we started filling up a little more. So we had, but we had plenty of space. What do they mean? And they know this because we contacted them and said, hey, we only have 3. We have a lot of space. Is there any more kids? We ran out of the money. We placed, the kids we could with the money we had. I said, well, last year when, we weren't able to get open because the C of O problems, you were assigning us 21. Now we got the C of O. You only giving us 3. Yeah, well, other new daycare UPKs opened up and we had to spread them out and the money ran out. But that's not what parents are being told. So after that parent was able to assign her child because we said, no, we have plenty of space. So she said, okay, great. I want to put my child here. So then my wife, being the kind woman that she is, said to the woman, if you let the school know that you want to come to Little Prodigies and they'll assign you through the school, they'll give you 2.5 hours free. She said, really? But they said that they have, they have no more rooms and they're on a waiting list, but I don't understand. She said, go tell them that. See what they say. She went, she said, I want Little Prodigy. They have plenty of spaces. You told me they had no more spaces. Next day, early in the morning, we get an email. So-and-so has been assigned to your UPK. She tells her friend because her friend, another parent, was told the same thing. They had no more spaces. Boom. She went to the board of Val, one Little Prodigies. Next day, in the morning, we get an email. This so-and-so has been assigned to your thing, UPK. Also, they could have always been assigned that whole time. They're being told that they have to wait because there's no more spaces when in fact Little Prodigies was just waiting to get more kids assigned. How fucked up is that? How fucked up is that? That you would spite these children to spite us. And then you have not paid us in 5 months, Board of Ed, Yonkers. Pay your bills. Pay your bills. 5 months, you have not given us 1 penny, and on top of that, you are not assigning us any more kids purposely. You're telling parents that there's no more space when in fact we have space. But you're telling us when we're saying, hey, we have space, assign us more kids. Oh, the money ran out. They don't care about the people. They obviously don't care about the kids. They don't care about your kids. If your child goes to Yonkers Public Schools, they don't care about your kids. These parents could have been in a UPK. Their child could have been in a UPK program since September. But they were lied to. And we were lied to. How dare you? How dare you? Now, Dr. Casada, why did you tell me the money ran out? And I'm not blaming you because I think you were told to say that. I'm sure Vinny Spano did call you and say, hey, tell him this. And that is my beef with the city of Yonkers and our elected officials, because they don't care. They don't care about anyone here but themselves. They don't care about the kids. They talk a lot of shit. They don't do shit. Not one of them. Where are they? Nowhere to be found. How many hours is Mike Spano supposed to actually spend in City Hall? We need to start auditing him. Get your ass to work and make sure that kids are getting assigned to UPKs so they can get a start on their academic career. You're having them wait because you don't want to assign them to my daycare center? And on top of that, you're not paying me. So you're trying to fuck me all around. Karma's a bitch. Just you know that. And you might go with your money. But money means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you guys will pay for that. And I'm not saying I'm going to do something to you. I'm saying that the universe will correct itself, because it always does. Especially when you do things to children. And Ruros, your time is up also. You're going to be all the way exposed. And all of you are. How dare you? Now pay me my money, Yonkers Public Schools Board of Ed, City of Yonkers, because we like to get a van. Okay? You don't give us any grant money. You don't do any helping and supporting of us. We have to pay for it out of our own pocket. So give us our money so we can buy a van. And the state owes us for damn near a year. Hey, Shako, can you tell us your sister to get us paid? One of the corrupt judges we be talking about. Anyone that was put into a judge seat by Zahi Jeris and the current administration is corrupt. Bottom line, they're corrupt. Corrupt. Compromised. And should not be there. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. I want my money. I want my money. How dare they? How dare they? Freddie, they're more concerned about paying illegal feed, house, healthcare too, with your, with your tax money. They told my granddaughter that they had no room in pre-3 for her daughter. Well, tell her we got room. The kids love it. I wish I could film them, and their reaction to how they are in there when they, when they come, even just for the first tour, so people could see what I'm talking about. Kids don't want to leave. The last, his grandmother came in today to finish the paperwork. He got mad yesterday because he didn't want to leave. I had to say, it's okay, man, buddy. Right. He'll be back Monday. All right. He was back, That's unbelievable. People in Yonkers, I want you to understand this. I'm not just some angry person, that's bitter or that. I don't give a fuck. Because honestly, I live better than all those fucking elected officials. Maybe Nick Spano got all his money, and Mike Spano, right? I'm not married to Mary Calvi. But city council, yeah. Okay? I don't need shit. You guys do. I got more than you. If you want to be superficial about it, right? Got more than you. I don't care what you think you know about me, because you don't. That's what's great about it. I've done things that you probably don't even understand or even can define. Right? Tasha, Shanae, Lakeisha. Oh, you're a lawyer, right? You came from nothing. How about you, Johnny Rubo? How's that beer making going? How about you, Breen? How many wieners you sold in your lifetime? And who did you taxi around? Thank God for patty cakes. Your daughter just got a promotion, right? What did she do for that? Or what did you do for that? Pay me my money. You're not going to stop me. I'm going to continue going. I am. The best thing you can all do is keep me so damn busy with my business that I can't even think about you morons. That's the best thing you can do. You should have filled my damn daycare up so I wouldn't be thinking about you, dummies. Tired of these people. Let's get these people up out of here. How dare they do that to people, man? These parents wanting to get their kids in a UPK and they're telling them there's no more space, lying to them. Lying to them. Bunch of liars and pieces of crap, man. I'm telling you, you guys need your little position. You need Nick, Spano, and Mike, yo. You guys need them. You can't survive without them. That's why you are willing to do the most disgusting, unethical, illegal stuff that you do. Nick Spano is your daddy. All of you. He's your daddy. Tasha, he's your daddy. Shanae's your daddy. Johnny's your daddy. Breen, he's your daddy. Nick Spano, your daddy. All of you on the city council. Make sure you give my Father's Day card this year. Freddie, they're more concerned about paying the fees. Yeah. So Teresa, let her know we got space and they can sign them. Kind of strange that they determined this 15 years that was for their pocket. I can't believe that they did that. They're telling parents there's no more space. Unbelievable. Are they going to help the family that lost everything in the fire yesterday? They have kids that are in the Yonkers public schools. Well, whatever I can do, let me know. If there's anything I can do. Who owns that building? Was it Zahi Jarris? He owns buildings on that street, Mulberry. Did he burn it down to hide his illegal apartments? Why did they burn that down? And folks, don't be surprised if you start seeing more fires in Yonkers. And I know, because I pay attention closely to the fires that have been happening in Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and the Bronx for the past maybe 9.5 years, 10 years now. And one thing's for sure, Yonkers has been the slowest in terms of fires. Mount Vernon has a lot more fires than Yonkers. Of course, the Bronx has over 1 million people, of course. Even Rockland County, Nyack. But lately, there's been an increase in fires in Yonkers. What happened to those buildings up at the top of Maple? How did that fire start? So here, the way it works is that the fire department, the marshal goes in to investigate and determine how a fire was started. Now, if you're, corrupt, if you're in a corrupt city, right, where every department has corruption within it, that's a fact. And you have some, corrupt landlords and greedy landlords that just want to burn down their buildings. When the fire department goes in there, they're not going to determine that it was, arson. Because they're going to already know what to do. And so they determine it to be, accidental. Just call it electrical fire. That's usually what it is 99% of the time because they don't really know. It's just electrical, whatever. That's what it is. Insurance takes that, it's fire marshal's report. It's got to be right. It's got to be true, right? And then they just pay these people. And they get their money. Then they sell the land as is to the people that want to develop that nursing home or whatever, senior home. Probably what happened. Probably happened up at Maple. What do they want to put at the corner up at the top of Maple up there? That the empty lot, and then they got those 4 houses, those buildings that burned, those tenements. Who really started that fire on Maple that burned those 4? They are leaving fucking people out in the street, man. And I say it like that because that's when I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight. Come out, you anonymous people. Let's fight. Okay, you're doing this to people, and it's sad. You're burning their shit. And one thing I know about tenants is that most of them don't have insurance, all right? No fire insurance. And they have everything they could afford. And, their whole life is in these apartments many times. And then they go up and smoke, and they have nothing. And then Red Cross comes because they have no money to go anywhere and puts them in some seedy hotel for maybe a day or two. And they'll stuff a bunch of people in there. I've seen it. And where did they go? I don't know, because I represent the client. They got money. Well, no, that's not always true. Sometimes they do. But my investor ones anyway, Right? And who cares about those people? Burn it up, get them out of here. That's it. So be on the lookout for more fires happening here in the city of Yonkers. I would not be surprised. Remember that? There's a documentary called The Bronx is Burning. I don't think they're going to burn down all of Yonkers like that, but many of these buildings are going to get burned down, right? And then somebody was telling me about, why didn't they just, somebody, it's kind of a, the mentality is a little bit ignorant, almost slight racist, right? Talking about, going, talking negatively about just racist, right? And so they're saying, well, they could buy the houses too. Why did they go in and buy those abandoned houses and fix them up, themselves, that they didn't want investors to buy them and then, and then push them out of their community? Well, because for one, the people that owned those buildings that were abandoned were holding on to them, waiting for this moment. They weren't going to just sell it to anybody, okay? And there's a lot of listings that people don't know about that are private listings that go to certain individuals, right? So they basically deny other people the opportunity to advance in life, to become investors. They see a property, that they want to buy, and then maybe they want to do something, but they can't, right? Just like 13 Culver Street. Anybody know anything about that? See, some of you people don't understand what I'm saying. I'll say it, but I know they're watching. Okay. So you can all just shut off now, but I know they're watching. And so some of the things I say might go, and it's okay. But it's not going to go over there. It's going to smack them right in the face. What's up with that 13 Culver Street, right? Which I put in, that's where that CVS is going. There were other people wanting to buy that piece of property, fix it up and rent it out, but they were blocked. And who's the LLC that bought it and then just knocked it down? And now CVS is going up over there. How did you know that? You knew that the CVS was going up? Is that why you bought it and then knocked it down and just waited? See, so they wait till these people want to come buy it and then they sell it for a lot more money. That's what happened to those apartments or those houses on Buena Vista that were abandoned. The ones that are across from where now they're going to put that Teutonia, right? By the Mary, whatever, Queen's Day daughter, whatever, daycare center, right? They've been like that for years, boarded up, because they don't care. These people got money. They don't care about the holding costs, right? So they'll absorb that holding cost. And then they come around to develop this whole area. Now they're selling it for buku cash. But when you work in the clerk's office, right? When you're a city clerk or a county clerk, like Lenny Spano was, right? You know where all the properties are at. You know what's going down with all the properties in that city or that county if you working in the clerk's office. And so that's why, these guys did well in real estate. Lenny Spano, county clerk. Vinny Spano, city clerk. That's where all the records are, right? I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. What up with that? It's 105 Lockwood Avenue. 105 Lockwood Avenue. You could contact us at 518-853-7488 or email avasquez@littleprodigies.org. AVAZQUEZ@littleprodigies.org. And folks, listen, we are going to be like the community daycare center, right? You're going to know us, right? You bring your child there, but you know the owners. That's Freddie Vasquez. That's Andre Vasquez. She's an assistant principal here. Feel very safe with us, right? And we want to grow. Okay, this is just the first location. This is going to be like our flagship location, man. And then we're going to do other locations, right? But we don't want to just be any daycare center. And I'm not going to talk about too much of ideas because we know they will block you and then do your idea. Okay, so I'm not going to say it, but, we really want to provide a true, experience for families, something that they're not, used to having now or had before, with the goal of essentially, propelling children, forward, putting them on the path to success very early on. Never too early. I say never too early. And if any of you watched the Bernie Madoff thing on Netflix, and I'm just saying one thing that I sticks with me from that series, whatever, I don't know why, out of everything else, is that one of the people investing with Bernie Madoff, lost everything. And he was so upset because he got his whole family in it. And so he starts listing the people that were invested. And he talks to his grandchildren, his grandkids' kids, you know what I mean? The point is that this family, they teach their kids how to invest money and all that at a young age, right? They don't wait till they're like, oh, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm graduated high school. Okay, should I go to college now? You have to be thinking about this stuff. There's kids that are bred, in these businesses, and that's why they excel and become the billionaires and all that stuff. They didn't just come from nowhere. Elon Musk didn't just come from nowhere. What's his name? Bill Gates didn't just come from nowhere. Even Bezos didn't just come from anywhere. They would have parents and grandparents that did things, right? And they gave them loans, like Donald Trump and all that. So, but many people that come from where I come from don't. So we want to provide that, you know. I don't know. The mother and son passed away last night. Wait, the mom and dad passed away last night. I'm sorry. I don't know of the child. Somebody died in that fire. Oh shit. I see that a lot. Unfortunately, that's something that And look, and this is what I was talking about, illegal apartments, because there was a bunch of knuckleheads, and I say that because, people die. This is a real deal, man. Who were saying to me, "Oh, well, you're a rat, or you ratting," because I was talking about the illegal apartments. What idiots? If you're still talking about rat and you're ratting, you are an immature idiot. Seriously, you're an immature idiot. Honestly, grow up, right? And people die because of illegal apartments. People die, and they want to make illegal apartments legal here in the city of Yonkers. Right? They want to allow you to make your garages and these, basements into legal apartments. People die. Firemen die. Children die because they get trapped. They're not, obviously a legal apartment, so they don't have, what's required, like the, number of means of egresses, right? Or, the window heights or, ceiling heights, and people die. And that's not cool. Wow. Yes, the mother and son lived on the top floor. Wow. Yeah, and they got trapped probably up there with the smoke coming up. It's, and did they have fire escapes there? Did they have, how would they get out? Their second means of egress there, and you know what I mean? What's going on with these? There was a lot of slumlords here, and they just got away with it. Many of them got away with it because many of them were connected to elected officials. Right, Zahi Jarris in his lawsuit, suing me for $1 million. Right, one of the things he's saying is that, oh, you say that I have illegal apartments. Well, that's what people are telling me. Tenants of yours, right, dude? You went to jail for 4 years for bribing, extorting, blackmailing people within your own community. And according to an article I read, your cousin Sandy Nabi, although somebody says she's not your cousin, but I was told she was your cousin, and I read it in a newspaper, a major publication, right? Your own family throwing them under the bus. Mike Cater, dude. You don't think I believe that you have illegal apartments, dude? Your whole shit is illegal, dude. You ain't earned what you got. That's another thing. You guys ain't earned what you got. The people that are in control now, like the Spanos, it's like John Gotti, right? There's the difference between Carl, and let's talk about mob, right? The Gambino family was founded by a gentleman by the name of Carlo Gambino. The guy died of old age. He was smart. He used his brain, right? That's how he got to the top. And then he handed it down to pass it off, not to someone else who John Gotti admired, but to Paul Castellano. But why? Because Paul Castellano was smart and he was legitimizing the family, right? And, John Gotti was pissed off. And so what John Gotti do to get to the top? He killed Paul Castellano, right? At Sparks Steakhouse, right? They had the Russian hats and all that stuff, right? And that's how he got the power. But his power was short-lived because he was a knucklehead. He was a dummy. He was just brutal and ruthless. And that's how he got the power. And then he ended up going to jail where they beat him down and he died in there, right? Didn't last. And so that's how those that are in power now are. They're just ruthless, brutal, muscled their way in, and have scared people from opposing them for a long time now. Well, I'm not scared. I'm from the streets. I've seen brutal, and I'm ready to get down and dirty. But I also have intelligence. I also have a brain. And so we have to use our brains, folks. And let's outsmart these people, and let's make some change this year. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Thank you, beautiful people. Have a great night. And I'll see you soon. Wow, she was wheelchair bound. I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences to that family. I'm sorry. And, hopefully that, no one started that. But and I heard that they were having issue also getting water on the fire, the fire hydrant near the home, and I've seen this happen before. Was not, the water pressure was not strong enough, so they couldn't really get good enough pressure out of it. So they had to go up to Yonkers Avenue. Now I've seen this happen again before, and when that happens, what it does is it delays the amount of time that water is put onto a fire, allowing for it to spread even further. So what's wrong with these are these fire hydrants not being checked? This happened in Mount Vernon to one of my client, right? Thank God her daughter got out alive, although she was injured. Her pregnant daughter was injured. The floor collapsed in the first floor because it took firemen in Mount Vernon 20 minutes to get water on the fire because the fire hydrant directly in front of the house was not working. Right? And thank God she hired me to represent her. She called me family. She says, you know, you're more family than my family because I take care of people. That's why I love my job. I make good money and I take care of people. And I put, you know, some stuff in their pockets. You know what I mean? Right? Meaning that they do well, right? So they get nicer homes and everything. I mean, they make out, as long as no one died. I always say everything else is replaceable, right? No one died. But they get stuff also out of it. It's only right that they benefit. So we'll give them more upgraded cabinets and countertops and things like that, right? And that's what I mean by getting stuff in their pockets. They will have to normally pay extra for that. But you've been through a lot. You're traumatized. You know, your family's gone through a lot. So, you know, we take care of people, put them in a hotel. We'll pay for it. You know, we'll fund everything up until insurance company actually starts paying. You know, so I could be months from now before I get reimbursed. And sometimes I don't get reimbursed and I got to go sue people, right? But that's what it is. So, you know, that's why it's important to make sure these fire hydrants are working. It wasn't long ago that I found a fire hydrant in the No Dine Hill section laying flat on its side. So I had to take a picture of it. And the woman that was in front of the building, sitting in front of the building that it was in front of, said, "What are you doing?" I said, "This is, you know, broken. We got to fix this, right? It's dangerous, right?" She said, "Oh, what are you going to do? You're not going to get nothing done." She goes, "It's been like that for a week." That's what she said. She said, "What are you going to do about it?" It's been like that for a week. That's what she said in Spanish. Nothing's going to get done. I posted it literally that day. It was fixed. People were reaching out to me and they got fixed. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you. Because the buildings in that area are so close together that if you don't put fire on, you know, the whichever building's up on fire in time, it will spread. And you'll have 4 tenement buildings going up now. And I've seen that. 4 or 5 tenement buildings going up. And now you're talking about, you know, dozens of families left homeless because the fire hydrant was laying flat on its side when it should have been working and operating. And so, like fire extinguishers at my daycare center, which I have to get inspected and they have a tag, shouldn't fire hydrants have the same thing, right? It's only right. But I hear this happened also the problem at that fire. So maybe that's why it burned so bad and someone died. I'm Freddie Vasquez, again, Space with Politics. Thank you, folks, for watching. I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting. Please keep telling a friend secretly, whisper. And again, create a fake account. I mean, a Gmail account, right? And then log into YouTube. Use that. You can comment. You know, if you know how to create a fake Facebook, you can use your Gmail, an email account for a fake Facebook. You don't have to have a phone number. I'm just saying, if you want to comment anonymously, I want to know what the consensus is. I would love for as many people as possible to tell me what they think about Mayor Spano running again. Do they want to see him mayor again, or do they want to see someone else? And if so, who would that person be? I'm very interested. Please. I know some of you are scared to comment live with your name. I get it. But, you know, don't be scared no more. I got your back. Tell me, anybody mess with you? Let me know. I'll come see you. Messing with you. Who that? Tommy messing with you? Which one? Tommy M or Tommy T? Tommy Senior or Tommy Junior? Which one? I'll cross him over. Hook! Slam dunk right on Tommy Junior's. Nah, he's probably better at basketball than me. I'm honest. Come on, I don't want to lie. I'm not like those guys. I don't want to be like those guys. I'll be honest. Baseball was my thing. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful and blessed weekend. And I'll see you when I see you. Peace out. Sunday, my wife will be on. Let's talk about, child development, social services, CPS, family court, education, all that stuff. Parenting, children, all that stuff. Sunday, join us. My wife will be joining me, at 8 o'clock to discuss some things, some of the things that she's been doing with the Department of Social Services. I've been trying to do with some of our elected officials in improving the family court CPS system, DSS. I was gonna say DPS, DSS, Department of Social Services. So she'll be there. Family, parents, if you have questions, about your child, academics, social emotional development, learning, and all that stuff, join it. It's gonna be very very informative. My wife, she knows a lot. I know she's my wife. I'm supposed to say that, but she really does. She knows a lot. So join us. Especially those who've been asking me, "Where's your wife? I want to see her some more." She gets more requests than me, by the way. So join us on Sunday at 8:00. I want to get away from politics a little bit, although I will connect it a little bit to politics. I have to. But let's find out why CPS is doing a horrible job at stopping false CPS reporting. Why? Why you guys suck at that?
I was raised in housing. I don't think 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 you.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
I want to end this quick because I'm greedy and I want somebody to want a chicken. So thank you.
Mr. Rumo lied to me, and I don't vote for the person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
No! Don't forget, folks, join me this Sunday at 8:00. My wife, Assistant Principal Andrea Vasquez, will be joining me. If you have any questions, IEP questions, about your child's development, any maybe issues, your concerns you may have, concerns with their academics, or not concerns. You want to say they're great and congratulate them and give them a shout out. Join us Sunday at 8:00. Miss Vasquez will join Freddie Vasquez on Basement Politics.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Have a beautiful and blessed night, folks.